A shocking end to the 12th game of the World Chess Championship as world number one Magnus Carlsen offered a draw from a better position and with more time on the clock to take the match to a tiebreak. Will the best rapid and blitz player on the planet prove his strategy correct? Or will the challenger pull off an upset for the ages? It's time to crown a champion in a heart-stopping finale. Exciting action live from London starts right now.
Hello and welcome back to our World Championship coverage. We are now in rapid playoffs as Fabiano Caruana, St. Louis's own challenger for the world title, is playing against this man, Magnus Carlsen, the reigning king. And after 12 rounds, tied 6-6, and we have playoffs. In fact, we're already getting moves in on the first game of a 4-game rapid playoff. I'm Jennifer Shahade. I'm here with Yasser Seirawan. And yeah, the first good news of the day, you were right about something. We've got an English.
We've got an English. And Jen, it's great to be with you. I'm in panic mode over here. I've been nervous, difficulty sleeping. And we have an English with this early E2, E4. The first few moves went slowly, and we've got, well, as soon as white plays D3, we've got what we would call the Botvinnik pawn triangle. White has pawns on C4, E4, and D3 in the middle of the board. The whole setup, we're in a tiebreak. 4 games of rapid chess. First to score 2.5 will win. Jennifer, let's take a look at the format.
That's right. We've got game 25 plus a 10-second increment. That's what we're at right now. Get to 2.5 points. It's over. You're the world champion.
Exactly.
After the rapid, we go to blitz, which is repeated up to 5 times if needed. And then we go to Armageddon. Extremely unlikely, probably less than 1%. So that said, this match is defying the odds. All 12 games being drawn the first time in history for that. Magnus does start with the white pieces. Definitely an edge in this type of format, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Considering that we might, you know, depending on how it goes.
The match could be over in 3 games.
That's why it's good to get started with white.
In.
And we've got Grandmaster Maurice Ashley for a fast fact as we watch this playoff develop.
Indeed, you said it's an edge for Magnus to have the white pieces in this format. But Magnus doesn't need an edge because he is simply the best rapid player on the planet, bar none. It's just unquestioned. It would be a big upset if Fabi were able to defeat him, and not just because it's Magnus, but because no one has ever defeated a champion in this format. In fact, of the 3 matches in the 12-game format that have gone to tiebreak, the champ has won every single one. First it was Kramnik defeating Topalov, then Anand defeating Gelfand, and Carlsen himself smashing Karyakin in their tiebreak in New York. So the trend is against Fabi all the way. What will he have? Well, he's going to have to show heart, grit, and determination to be able to pull off what would indeed be an upset for the ages.
Thank you, Maurice. And again, 2016 World Championship match, similar situation, tied. Magnus drew game 1, drew game 2, but then came with back-to-back victories in games 3 and 4. And Maurice, you and I were talking about this yesterday, and I think you made a great explanation of why games 1 and 2 are so crucial to Fabi.
Absolutely. You really want to have a lead early because the more games you play, the more the stronger player gets comfortable and the more the weight factor kicks in. He starts to say, look, I'm the big dog here. I'm the better player. So you need, the shorter the match, let's say it was a 1-gamer, then Fabi would have his best chance. Anything could happen in 1 game. If you made it 15, 20 games, a rapid match, Magnus is just going to start getting really comfortable and showing why he's the #1 player. So Fabi, I think, needs this game to go okay with black, maybe get a draw. Not saying he's playing for it, but if he does, then he gets the white pieces and he could hit Magnus, then taking a lead with only 2 games left, then he really has a chance to put the pressure on Magnus. But I think if he slips up in one of these 2 games, boy, it's going to be rough. I mean,
Well,
almost impossible.
Speaking of big dogs, we have Gary Kasparov joining us in the beginning of Game 2. So you're going to want to keep your eyes peeled to this broadcast, guys. Gary Kasparov, we can keep the position up as well, as we've got. Yeah, we've got this English position. How do you feel about this choice? I got to say, compared to a lot of other people, I don't think Fabi's chances are that underdog.
Yeah.
I believe in Fabi, and you know who agrees?
Surprised that you would say that, Jen.
Well, but you know who agrees with me?
Who agrees?
Gary Kasparov. He said he thinks the chances are way closer to even than he originally predicted.
Right.
And another person who agrees with me, this one might actually scare Fabi fans.
Okay.
Hikaru Nakamura.
Hikaru tweeted in a very interesting tweet. Hikaru said, "Oh, please, you've got it up on the board there." That he felt that in the 12 games, Fabi had out-prepared Magnus, that his transitions in the middle games was better, and even his endgame play, he had out-foxed Magnus, and that it would be very strange if Fabi were to lose this match.
I don't think Hikaru said that he thought Fabi was favored.
No.
All he said was he thought it would be fairer for Fabi to win given how the 12 games went. And I think also with Gary, and by the way, this move A6.
Yeah, what
I want to get into that quickly. But
What?
Gary also felt that it would be that Magnus is losing a bit of nerve to have taken a draw in Game 12. You feel like maybe Magnus is not all there. That said, if you're going to bet money, boy, Magnus is very hard to bet against Magnus. But that said, also the Botvinnik English, it brings back memories of my great friend, now late friend, Ronald Simpson, who taught me this system, which I played for years with White and got a lot of victories all the way up to almost 2,400 level before it was handled at the higher levels, and I couldn't keep playing, and I had to switch to some main lines. But this line, I just have so many fond memories about great victories with the white pieces. This formation, I've never seen C6 and A6 and B5. I've seen B5 get executed. But with C6 and this pawn still on D7, Yasser, you're a specialist in this. Have you ever seen this kind of triangle formation with B5 being played this quickly?
No, very, very peculiar. I mean,
I've never seen it.
The Byrne variation of the King's Indian defense does have A6 and C6 and B5 involved.
Sure,
but in that case, D6 is on the board.
Is the bishop all the way over on G7?
Right.
Right. It's not this position.
So this is way, way, way off the beaten track. I'm thinking that Magnus will get no advantage should he capture. So that's out. Magnus would get no advantage should he play either B3 or D3. I think it comes down to this challenge that Magnus literally has to play D4, and if you got a position, I'm just putting it on the board like this, I think White has a respectable chance of fighting for advantage because he's picking up a tempo.
So do you have time in any of these lines to play for E5? No, because you're attacking. Like I was thinking about taking with the knight instead of the queen.
Taking with the knight on D4 instead of the queen here in this moment?
Yeah, and then like trying to play for E5 and planning to play for E5 and knight F5. But queen takes looks so natural, of course.
He already played D4, by the way.
He did.
And D4 on the board, nice.
I don't like taking as black. I feel like you're asking for it, in that kind of position. It just seems to me that, and he did play D6. Yeah, I was about to say, it seems to me D6 is required. And the problem now, more than anything, is that bishop sitting on B4, to me.
Okay.
Well, that's one of the problems. The other problem, that queenside development, that bishop, knight, and rook, getting quick harmony. That's why I felt you need to play D6 as fast as possible. Get your bishop out. I'm not even sure. Maybe your knight has to precede it, in fact. Maybe you need to play knight D7, then bishop to B7, and hold that position. Because coordination on the queen side is an issue. And also, you played A6. So if White gets any speedy something going, then A6 will prove itself to be a tempo loss. So Black is taking a big risk in this position, in this original setup, and I can guarantee you Magnus is going to sit on this position and say, where is my edge? Where is my edge? He's going to look for it now because this is not a standard setup that you see in this formation.
Well, you're an English player, Yaz. How do you rate White's advantage here? Are you happy?
Yes, I am very happy with White, and I think it's very important to pursue the initiative with precision. And the way I see it, this bishop actually on B4 is misplaced. And what I want to do is get as much development as quickly as possible. So I would like to start with the move queen b3. Give me that bishop. I would love to encourage you to play bishop takes c3, queen takes c3. I've got the two bishops. I've got b3. I've got bishop a3 ideas. So you can't give me the two bishops. So you got to either take the move and lose a tempo with bishop a5, or you've got to do something else that you don't really want to do, which is play c5 or a5. Maurice, your take after
bishop,
queen b3. You play bishop a5?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do play bishop a5.
Bishop e6 is potential.
I have to say,
d4 and bishop e6 could be in the air.
Okay, and I will play rook d1. This is where getting that initiative from development comes in very quickly.
Queen's going to have to go to e7 in that setup, though.
Yeah.
I mean, black is in crouch mode, right? This is like, crouching tiger, hidden dragon. That's the mode he's in right now.
Yeah.
And he has to be very careful for the game to explode, because if it does, he has a bishop on c8, knight on b8. That's going to be a problem. White doesn't want to play casual moves. You see Magnus looking at it now. He doesn't want to do something like bishop e3, queen c2, bring the rooks over, even though he'll have a little bit of a space advantage. But his center is collapsing. Right. And that the pawn on e5 and the pawn on b5, the plus to those things, those pawns, that maneuver, is that white's center could fall apart. And if white doesn't maintain any integrity in the middle of the board, then black will just develop around and get the c5 square for a piece and be very comfortable. So right now, this is why Magnus is thinking. Magnus is focused on this position because he knows he gives the guy a couple of freebie moves, black will be back in the game. He can't just be casual. So expect something more incisive. And this position is hypercritical. What a risky formation for for black to have chosen in this critical game.
Right,
give it to Fabi. C6, A6, B5 without D6. Amazing that he's done this.
Yeah.
Amazing in a good way or amazing in a bad way?
Amazing only from the heart standpoint of view.
The heart.
I'm not assessing this position because I feel personally that I would have preferred. Oh, look at what has happened. A3, bishop takes on C3.
Hold on, let me.
Has actually occurred in the game. He's conceded the two bishops and captured a pawn on C4 right now. What a big decision.
So we have already on the board the move A3. Okay, I thought pursuing with precision the development advantage with queen B3. I didn't really consider sacking the pawn. Just a second.
Is it a real sack? I mean,
but we can take on e5 and then go for c4, right?
Well, if we take on e5 and go queen here, the bishop is going to settle nicely on e6, and I won't be able to play d4, d5.
But I could play for f4, f5 in that case. I mean, are you really going to be able to hold on to that pawn on c4 long term?
Don't know. There'll be queen b. Yeah,
you'll have to make concessions. You'll have to make concessions to get this position going.
Double-edged.
Very double-edged.
Here.
This f4 idea, to me, like, I know you love this position as an English player, well, the other position especially, but to me, I'm looking at this and I'm feeling excited about the fact that I have this lever on tap with or without exchanging of playing f4, which can A, stop your bishop from coming to e6 gracefully, and B, kind of thinking about taking and playing bishop g5 in some lines.
Right.
So, and in fact, we do have a couple moves.
We have knight a4. Listen, guys, this position is all about the dark squares. That's what it's about. White now has a dark square bishop.
Taking on e5 first, by the way.
So you can't even argue. He took on e5 and then he played knight a4. You can't even argue about the two bishops because your bishop on g2 is not anybody to write home about unless somehow it explodes into the game after f4 and some exchange. And even then, it's not about that piece. What this position is about is that dark square bishop on c1. That bishop combined with that knight on a4, they're about to look at black and say, we're going to beat you up on these squares. We're going to create a bind that you're never going to be able to do anything about. And it's because of that fractured dark square setup on a6, c6, c4 that he's conceded all the dark squares. Magnus doesn't mind being down a pawn here because he's going to have active play on the dark squares and create a bind. There's going to be threats. This looks very promising. Even if the engine's saying this is about equal, you better find moves now as black because your pieces are going to come under pressure. Your squares are going to come under pressure. I would take this all day with white, like all day. I wouldn't have any worries. What pawn down? What are you talking about? Like, look at those squares. How do you guard c5, b6, rooks coming to d1? I mean, there's so much play. And by the way, Jen, your f4, we'll keep that on top just in case we need it.
So
And
how
meanwhile,
would it go, Maurice, after a move like bishop e6, developing, defending the pawn? I know what you're saying. You want to clamp down big time on the c5 and b6 squares. If you go bishop e3 and black just continues his development, says, okay, recover your pawn. I got rook b8 on tap, says Fabi. I've got counterplay. I'm not just sitting here doing nothing.
I don't see the pawn. I'm not even interested in the pawn.
Okay.
Right? So if you're going to play like this, I want to just make sure I make a couple of good moves from this moment. So maybe you need a d file.
You want to bring.
I just have to be careful about one thing, and that is your knight going to g4.
Knight g4. I mean, is
Bishop
it
e6
really,
has been played, by the way.
Is it? But yeah, and is it really play on one goal? Because queen a5.
That's why I didn't like actually bishop to e3 immediately.
Sorry, we do have bishop e6 on
Bishop
the board.
e6 has been played. I was thinking queen e1 here.
Queen e1.
Is that too esoteric a move?
That's deep. Okay, you're still trying to control the dark squares, but I mean, I'm boring.
Okay, bishop,
I'm just developing.
And again, bishop e3 or bishop.
Okay.
What about? Wait, stop. What about bishop d2 here? Let's go with this plan. I know it's
d2. So you
I've been doing this against you in analysis about 30 years ago, yeah.
Hey, we're getting long in tooth, aren't we, Maurice?
You remember, though, don't you? Remember when you played Barlov?
I do.
You remember? And I played
do.
this bishop d2 idea as a youngster.
That's funny. Okay, go ahead and execute your plan. Again, I'm thinking that the half-open B file...
Yeah, but I want to play bishop a5.
Okay, you can kick me around. I don't know exactly where you're kicking me to.
We'll go, yeah, so now bishop b4 is always a move.
Okay,
which will force c5 out of you, which you want to do.
I'm definitely playing c5.
So now rook d1, etc. I mean, what?
And it just goes on.
Yeah. What are your next few moves? Although the engine didn't like my rook d1 just now, you want to play rook there. How do we get at you?
Well, it's not that easy. I mean, Fabi is a pawn up, Jennifer. I mean, come on,
It's still about 19 minutes for both players, by the way. And
again, remind us, it's game 25.
It's game 25 with a 10-second increment.
Got it.
Another key reminder for those of you just tuning in, Gary Kasparov will be joining us during game 2 to talk about the game, the match, and it's always just such a thrill to have the GOAT on the show.
Right.
And particularly his strong opinions about the final game of the classical match, which he was not on the line for. Kramnik was on the line for that. But I got to think Gary is watching this right now and is nervous on behalf of Fabi because this looks like black having more fun.
Like we just had a trade of queens.
Of queens, okay.
Okay, which
but
was a little...
on White's behalf, not queen takes d1, which would have been really nice for White, giving us the only open file as Magnus.
Right.
So instead, Magnus was the one to initiate the trade after bishop to e6.
Just a second, yeah. So we were here, Magnus went knight a4 and immediately traded by Magnus. That's surprising to me because that seems, to my eyes, to simply help Fabi's desirous control over the d file.
And how do you meet f4 here, Yaz? Because I noticed that you can't play knight d7. You can't move your knight to d7.
And lock my bishop in because f4, f5 would be a heart-stopping victory. F4...
I know it's not the most
it's not the positional move that you...
How do you
want.
But if you take on f4, then I'm happy with that pawn duo in the center, right? And the potential for my bishop to explode. So
it's possible here either way to play c4, c3, excuse me,
c4, c3, okay.
And release this bishop from prison so that you can develop your pieces. I know, Yaz, you want to somehow figure out how to keep that pawn on the board.
Sure.
But your bishop is coming under such heavy fire. Knight bd7 is an essential move. He instead played bishop to e3, going after those dark squares and giving him the opportunity to play the move.
Not f4.
Not
After
f4.
queen takes, rook takes, we've got bishop e3 on board.
Very positional treatment.
And we've got knight b8 to d7 as expected by Fabi because he's just ready to bring his rook to the half-open b file. And I can see that Magnus on a good day could slow play it. f2, f3, rook over to c1. Bishop drops back to f1. And I definitely agree. If white ever manages to play rook c1, bishop f1, and bishop takes c4, the pawn structure will be very favorable for white.
Okay, rook b8. Rook a b8 has been played.
Well, after knight d7, we need a move for white.
Oh, well, we have.
Okay, I got.
Well,
knight
which board
d8,
am I
d7.
looking at? Which board am I looking at? The board on the right is game. So f3 and
was
bishop
played.
e3,
Okay.
all that is on the board.
Okay,
As
f3
you
was
suggested.
played. Yeah. So the reason I like f3 is because we're going to be. Magnus is going to want to play bishop f1. He's got to keep the pawn on f3 protected, and he doesn't want to be menaced by knight f6 to g4. So f3 is a prep move. Rook b8, reminding white, like, look, I've got open file for my rook, and I'm eyeballing this pawn on b3, and I'm eyeballing rook b3. So we're expecting rook on f1 to c1, rook b3, and Fabi says, okay, give me your bishop, and I also want to x-ray this pawn on f3, making it awkward for you to play bishop f1, king here, and
He's played rook a c1, by the way.
rook on a to c1. Okay,
A lot of interesting decisions being made quite reflexively. By the way, that position with that I suggested with queen e1, bishop d2,
Yeah.
computer gave compensation. If you combine it with the idea of bishop b4 and f4, Jen's idea, keeping
Right.
queens on
Yeah.
and going for the break with f4, that position you were looking at, saying compensation. So that was really an interesting way to keep the queens on. Magnus has decided he doesn't want to keep queens on. He wants to show his superiority in the endgame. The rook is now on b3, attacking the bishop after rook a c1, so we can catch up with the
played.
board. Rook to b3, attacking that bishop. Now, to me, when I look at this position, I see these superfluous knights. The knight on f6 and the knight on d7. That knight on f6 is a problem for black.
Right.
Black is hungry for the moment when you could trade off one knight and then reuse the d7 square for the knight on f6.
Right.
Because that piece is being restrained right now by a pawn formation. He just can't do anything. In fact, how many moves does he get to improve his position? If you look at this, how would you improve black's position from this moment? Let's say, for example, white played king f2. I'm just going to throw down a move. Now, white has easy moves, as you suggested he has. He can move his rook to d1. He can move his bishop back to f1. All those moves are fairly unstoppable.
Exactly.
But what is black supposed to do right now? What are black, I always want to know, what are your moves so that I can figure out how to fight them? What is black supposed to do? Black would love to pick up that knight on f6 and drop it on d4 somewhere. Oh, d3. Oh, even better, Yaz. Your imagination was even more ambitious than mine. It would be beautiful to be able to put that knight there. But where do you put your bishop on e6? Looks like it's stuck there. Where do you put your rook on d8? You want to double on the b file? Congratulations, there's a knight on a4. Where do you put your knight on d7?
It's a long maneuvering to get the knight to d4.
It's hard to figure out how to move right now for black.
Exactly.
Black is in a white has played rook, by the way. Magnus played rook to e1.
Rook on f.
Instead, rook after e1,
Okay.
keeping the position stable. And now I'm a little surprised it wasn't king f2. Maybe he saw some sacrifices on b2 in case of double on the b file. But right now, we have a situation. Oh, I know why he did, of course, because he wants to play bishop f1 immediately and keep that going. He's going to play bishop f1 and take the pawn on c4. So now we have a situation where you look at black and say, okay, you got the extra pawn. What are your next three moves?
Right.
Make some moves. Where do you put your pieces? It's very hard to find places for black's pieces.
Exactly.
Black is dominated right now.
Right. Especially the knight on a4 versus knight on d7. The knight on d7 really seems to be stuck. This guy's not going anywhere because it's playing the role of defender, keeping the c5 and b6 squares.
Actually, I feel like c3 is.
Yeah, that's
Is that
C4.
what you were thinking?
Yeah, that's C4, C3. I'm
I'm
beginning to get to the point where, aren't I supposed to play rook b8 and c3? Let's try rook b8, bishop f1, c3, as a way of clarifying.
Oh yeah,
the queen side before bishop takes c4 lands.
Absolutely, I like this plan. I think it's necessary.
Rook takes C3,
rook c3, right? You can't play knight c3 because of rook b2.
Knight c3 hangs the pawn on b2.
So you have to take
but
it with.
now, at least, I've damaged the structure.
But a6 is still hanging.
Yeah, but rook b3 now, and then a5 if necessary.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's the worst
I've got-
passed.
Yeah, I managed to mess up white's queenside structure. Even so, it's the two bishops. I mean, White's still better after, for example, rook a1, a5.
Well, the argument is that the dark square bishop is still strong. Right?
It's very much so.
And the problem is that a pawn is on the board. The queenside pawns exist. If we could somehow trade off all those pawns on the queenside, then we'd breathe and be like, oh, my goodness. So right now, as far as black is concerned, I'll give you my 3 on that side for your 2.
Without question.
Please, can I somehow pull that off?
And that's 4 versus 4. Yeah.
Right, and then leave 4 versus 4, and your bishop is not as dominating because it's a half a board then. Right. So that's something that Fabi's looking for.
Still pretty balanced on the clock, guys.
What is
about 14, 15 minutes for each player.
For each player.
So they're keeping pace.
This was one of my key concerns this morning when I woke up. I woke up early, way, way before the alarm, and I was thinking that it's very important for Fabi to keep pace on the clock. Remember game 1, when he started the World Championship match. He was down to the increments. He nearly lost that game. And
game 10 as well, by the way, although
he was down a lot. And even game 12, he was down a lot. At the end, it was almost a 3-to-1 ratio, 30 minutes to 10.
Right, with 9 moves to make. Yes, exactly.
Excuse me. Yeah, so Fabi has to stay ahead on the clock.
Because 10 seconds is not 30 seconds, to state the obvious. A 10-second increment is not enough to make, good, consistent moves.
Absolutely.
In the same way that the 31 is.
Those 10 seconds, they get eaten up so fast. You don't even, you're not
with
even
the physicality,
sure,
right?
Yeah, you're not even sure you got them. I mean, it's sort of like, wait a minute. I thought I was supposed to gain time on the clock, and that 10 seconds, boy, that goes by so fast.
Time is very relative in chess,
see,
right?
the idea.
This is actually a very critical position.
Absolutely, and I did. You and I felt the need to play the move c3.
Yeah.
I checked it with the engine. The engines agree c3 is going to be essential. Rook d b8 first, and then throw out c3. So essentially c3 that the engine is willing to play knight takes c3 and now play b takes c3 at the end of that in order to give White's pawn structure, in order to maintain the cohesion in White's pawn structure. So rook b d8. He played knight f8.
I think he's got knight. I think I have knight f8 on my board.
Is that what actually happened?
No.
I'm seeing knight e8.
Sorry,
knight
I
e8,
got the wrong.
Bishop f1, knight d6. Okay, so he tried to improve the position of his knight on f6 as we were pointing that out.
The superfluous knight.
That superfluous knight now find a whole different track. Those knights are not superfluous or harmonious or stable.
But I'm worried about the knight on d6 being unstable and be able to hit it with a rook d1 or a knight c5 idea. Knight takes, bishop takes.
Absolutely.
The only thing is the knight is headed places.
And he's just hit the knight.
Okay, but now we're not hitting c4 anymore, so why can't we just move the knight to like b5 or something
because
like that?
I'm really worried that after knight b5, there's a knight c5. And be careful because
I'm pinned.
You can take the pawn, but then after knight takes, pawn takes, that's another bishop.
And rook d7 is also a threat. Yikes! This is
suddenly.
No. Bishop e6 is also a threat. Yeah, too many
fun.
threats here. You have more threats than I have fingers.
Exactly. My spidey sense is really tingly in that line.
This one is tough, guys. The harmony of black's pieces is in question right now.
I tried knight b5. Let's try knight b7 at least.
Ew. Oh, you got to play knight
b7. Maurice.
What kind of knight is that?
Talk about superfluous knight.
That's just a dumb knight.
Well, at least that. Oh, okay. Woo. But at least compared to the knight on b5, I'm holding on to c5. I'm holding on to my rook on d8. But knight d6 leaves a very dangerous impression to me.
It certainly does.
By the way, the engine's giving knight b7 as the best move by far. Anything else is worse for black substantially. But how do you play knight b7 right now as a human being? That's a hard move to play for so many reasons. The knight has no future on b7.
But what are the other options? Knight b5, knight b7?
I get it. But if you have to play like that, you'd rather go down a pawn in some kind of other type position than have your knight sitting on b7.
But isn't it too late for that? Wasn't the move for that the move prior with
it
b8?
really was. It really was. Right now, I don't know what else for him to do.
I mean, what are our candidate moves after rook d1? Is it allowed to move the other knight? I don't think so, because there's going to be a bishop c5, right?
Or a knight c5 or a bishop c5. You're right.
So we must move the knight.
I mean, knight f8, bishop c5. Well, bishop c5, you do have knight b7. You're still kicking, Jen.
But there's also bishop b6 and knight c5, right?
Pardon? Bishop b6, precisely hitting the rook.
Rook d7.
Don't want to see any parts of that position.
Oh, knight c5, rook takes b6, knight takes d7, and the d6 knight hangs in the end.
Correct.
Right. So rook
That's
c6, knight e7.
that wins an exchange for sure.
This is not a Team Fabi position, guys.
No, this is not a Team Fabi position.
That would just be totally lost. So
pawns. Well, one pawn.
So that means that moving the knight is forced, and moving it back to e8. I mean that.
No, that's
just,
ultimate
that
grovel.
loses.
There's no way. No
Well,
way
the
in
problem,
world.
besides losing time, is it just doesn't help your position in any manner. Rook d2.
Don't forget knight c5.
And
by the way,
there's no c3 either for you. Oh yeah, we already saw some line like this.
Something like
Jen
that.
didn't want
we-
any
oh,
part
I don't even
of
want to
this.
see this position if I'm black.
I wish he had thought longer before playing knight d6 and came up with rook b8.
Well,
Yeah,
this
that
was
was
a
a
crucial.
critical-
Seems like it was a critical moment.
It really was. It really was. And when you feel, again, it's easier for us to see from the side.
For sure.
But
Right.
but nevertheless, Yaz and I were both like,
This is key.
This is right now, and I
Right
need to play
there.
something like C3 and get all this stuff off of me right now.
Right.
I need to get out of here.
Right.
And that was his chance. He tried to improve his knight. He noted the bad piece and tried to improve it, but it didn't really improve it. This knight on D6 is now a new target, and you can see in the fact that he's stopping here to think about it, he thought he could probably get to B5, D4.
I'm sure
Remember,
he was
I made that
thinking.
point? Like, I want to improve my knight, and I wanted to get to D4 also. Yasser found D3, and we were like, oh, that would be even better, but you can't even get there. But I saw the D4 square. Fabi sees the D4 square. But the timing was so important, was so critical, that by doing it now, you land yourself in trouble because it's just too soon. It doesn't happen. It's not timely. He could still play for this, by the way. The Indians do give knight b5, sacking the pawn and going down this ridiculous position as possible. If land the knight on d4 and say, you want that, then it's yours to have.
Well, I have a theory. I think that maybe the knight e8, knight d6 maneuver underestimated rook on c to d1 because, of course, the rook on e1 is protecting the bishop on e3, and the rook on c1 is hitting the pawn on c4.
Right.
So maybe that
This is a hidden
was the
move.
mental block.
Yeah, this is a hidden move.
This is actually an incredibly strong move.
Yeah, because as black, you're sitting there saying, okay, I've met your rook c1, bishop f1 idea by posting my knight on d6 and my bishop on e6. And then suddenly this move, rook d1, was like, oh, wait a minute, you're supposed to stay there and keep attacking c4. So it's very possible that rook c1, d1 just slipped Fabi's.
Well, it's a magnificent move. I mean, what can I say?
It does everything. It
Can I
does
show you an
everything
incredible
well.
line?
Please.
Now I'm just desperate for black.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking at the computer for help. Knight
Yeah.
b7 is the computer's first move, and he's still thinking right now. But he doesn't want to play it.
No.
It's a human. It's not human.
No.
All right?
Right.
You look at it and you just cringe.
You're right.
Check out this crazy line. Knight b5.
Which is very human.
Right? So you got knight b5, knight c5. Now, what are we playing? Rook b2,
Yeah.
knight e6,
Yep.
fe6.
Now we have to pause because we got this and this. Okay, but go on.
So bishop c4,
Natural move. Yeah. Give me the pawn. Give
knight
me
d4.
Knight David 4. Got it.
Yeah.
You're threatening knight takes f3 check, by the way.
Correct. Takes.
Rook. Should I? Yeah, I should take.
If you
this.
interpolate, then I'll play king f8 and king e7, so
Right.
takes. And now king f7.
Okay.
All right? All this you get to. And now your only move was king h1.
Right.
And it looks like we're going down this line. It'd be
Looks
incredible
like
if you
it.
calculated. But suddenly the move knight e5 shows up on the board, and it's a draw. Because rook d8,
Amazing.
knight f3 check, and you can't play king h1 because it's mate on h2, and now we get a perpet. How insane a line is that? But all the way back, before you doubled rooks, you should have played king. Well, don't play that because it's mate. But before you double
that's
rooks,
a Team Fabi line.
That's-
you
Exactly.
should have played king h1. So in this position, after rook takes king f7, the Indians give king h1 as clearly better.
But we
king
have moves, guys.
h1.
What do we got?
Knight b5.
We're in the
playing
line.
Knight b5.
We're
and
going
knight,
down the line.
Yeah, knight b5, knight c5, rook takes b2 on the board.
Yes, we're
absolutely.
going.
As you
This is
see
the
the
position
on the right. That's
He
right.
now needs to.
Knight b5 has been played, and we're expecting the move knight
Knight
c5.
c5
Knight c5 has been played.
Okay.
We're in
Knight
the line.
c5, rook takes b2 has been played.
Knight takes e6, f
That,
takes e6.
that hasn't been played yet.
This plays itself, I would say. Bishop takes c4, and as you say, Jen, I'm threatening to take on d7, taking on e6. Knight d4 looks forced. Bishop takes, pawn takes. Now, this one just nets as an extra pawn and a rook ending, right? Bishop takes e6 check, king f8, rook takes d4. That would be an extra pawn in a rook ending. But where we're looking at rook takes d4, king f7, and now thanks to this very unpleasant pin on the d file, the computer has this, well, how to say it, very crafty king h1 to get out of this combination of knight e5 takes f3. And the players are
Knight e6, fe6.
moving onto our position. This is the position on the board right now.
Knight e6, fe6, and bishop takes c4.
Has
As
been
we
played?
see the
Okay.
position on the screen.
So
on the left is
players
our
are
analysis.
catching up
and
to us.
That's amazing that Fabi found this line. But we know that he didn't
bad
want to
for
play
him.
knight b7. But he found this same line, and he thinks it's okay for him as he marches forward in this position. Now he needs to continue with knight d4.
Which
but,
we expected.
but
Or
does he
expecting.
actually see this drawing line, and will Magnus find king h1? Because if Magnus plays king h1, suddenly rook d1 is coming, and your position is tied up forever. You're not
Yeah.
moving anybody. You're
That's-
just stuck along this eternal pin.
That feels really bad.
It feels
though.
really, really bad for black. And Magnus is scoping out this position. I'm not sure if Fabiano realizes it now as he's looking at the board himself,
After
thinking
bishop
about his
takes
next
c4.
move. But if we have this line, it's incredible. But I wasn't surprised that he didn't play knight b7. That move looked so just counterintuitive.
Ugly.
So he decided to go straight for his thematic knight d4. He's going to get there, give up this pawn. At the moment, he's not.
He hasn't played knight d4
He's
yet.
not down a pawn
No.
yet. But
1, 2, 3, 4.
But
He is down on the clock now.
But he can't play king
he's up.
f7.
He's up a pawn.
About
Sorry,
8
just-
minutes for Fabi and 13 minutes for Magnus. Of course, this is a position where he had to struggle to find this plan, knight b5, knight d4.
Now the problem with king f7 exactly is what? It must be bishop.
Bishop b6, doesn't
Bishop
it?
g5.
Yeah,
related.
bishop g5
Bishop
looks
g5.
like a star.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that
Even better.
Is that we've got this terrible pin, and there isn't any time.
No, wait a
for
minute.
king
Bishop
f7.
Bishop g5, knight d4, rook d4. Okay.
Yeah,
That's right.
that wins a piece.
Yeah, let's
unfortunately.
note that line, by the way.
Bishop d4, knight d4 with the same idea, perpetual checks. Don't take the rook. Knight takes f3 will be a perpetual check against White's king.
Follow that line.
Well, we can just play rook takes d4,
Rook
right?
takes d4, but keep the line going.
That's what you're
Take a look at
saying.
this. Pawn takes, bishop d8,
Yeah,
and what's knight e5?
with a dual threat of knight takes.
So bishop e2, d3, bishop d1?
That looks like a showstopper.
Does it?
To
Is
me.
it? Is it? And if I
Because of d2, just
Rook f1.
rook f1, right? And
And then-
indeed, we do have the move takes on d4 now.
The players are catching up to our analysis, but
But that
our
line-
analysis is not good for Fabi.
no. And he's there.
He's
Uh-oh.
there.
Here
We're
it
right
is.
here.
King
We're-
f7.
Well,
Wait,
no,
rook
I mean,
d4.
no, there's bishop takes e6 check. That's a pawn up in a rook and pawn ending. Although I'm not happy about the rook and pawn ending because my king is stuck on the first rank.
How do you get the pawn up after king f8?
Bishop takes e6 check, king
Yeah,
f8, rook
correct.
takes d4.
Knight e5?
No, because you're hanging your rook on d8 with check.
Oh, with check.
You
you're
don't
right.
get to play knight takes f3.
But if I play king e, is that an extra? But that's extra pawn. Oh, it's a pass e pawn.
Well, I have 4 versus 2
Yeah.
on the king side. 4 versus 2. That's 2 extra pawns. You have a 2 versus 1 on the queen side. The problem is I don't want that king and pawn game because I'm afraid that my king on g1 is a little too passive.
Right. So let's see that line because he's thinking about both of them.
He's
We know
thinking
about the
of-
rook d4 line. He
Yeah.
has to find king h1 in that line. But if he plays bishop e6, king f8, rook d4, I can't
This
play
is a
knight
pawn
e5
to the
because
good.
of check and so
This is a pawn to the good for white, but we're just a little bit worried that thanks to the...
wait. Back up. Hold on. I want to sack this rook and just see what happens. You said it's with check, but if I play knight e5, you take, and I play king, what's your next move here? Correct. And if I take your rook, you're up a pawn, you're saying, and you're satisfied with that position. I guess you should be, yeah. That would make
I
sense.
got 2...
So you're not up a rook. You're up the pawn with clarity, with some clarity. Your B pawn, your A pawn, and
Actually, good clarity.
good clarity. Yeah,
yeah.
because my knight has nowhere to go. Actually, no squares for that piece. Knight D3 runs into rook D1.
But it seems like Maggie is deep in the tank as he just
Because
decides
this is
between
a
these
crucial-
options. The rook takes d4 and bishop takes e6 check.
I think I would probably play rook takes d4 in in a bullet game, because my instinct would be, let's bring this pin back into the position. Now, depending on how much time I had in the rapid game, I would take a careful look at that rook ending. I would.
The rook ending is correct. Better for white for sure, but that active rook
on the
is a
second
statement.
rank.
Is absolutely a statement. So let's take a look at this rook ending. Bishop takes, e6 check, king f8 because we haven't looked at it. Rook d4, king e7, which carries with it the dual threat of knight e5. So you can't just drop your bishop back. Let's drop it back somewhere like c4 for example, or h3, right? So knight e5 comes with a thud, and suddenly the idea of taking on f3, your rook is actually hanging on d4, the rook is actually defended on d8, and you're crying right now as white, as you just got murdered. So in this position, after rook takes d4, king e7, time to take on d7, takes and takes and takes. And now assess this position. There's a pass pawn sitting on e4, but black has a pass pawn on c5, an active rook on b2, and a threat of rook b3 at the moment as well to win the pawn back. This is something to judge. Magnus is going to have to feel pretty confident that he'll win this endgame with solely his pass pawn on e4 I don't know that this is that easy.
No, my gut instinct says the drawing chances are higher than white's winning chances, and that from the current position, I would probably fall back on rook takes d4.
But he has, and it's a great lesson for everyone at home about critical moments. Vladimir Kramnik was on our show the other day saying this is a critical moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if Fabi thinks for 10 minutes out of his remaining 20. In this situation, Magnus is taking his biggest tank of the game. He's been thinking for almost 5 minutes, and that's quite a lot in a rapid game. But if you think about it, it makes so much sense because on both crossroads, you're making a very committal decision.
Absolutely.
What type of position do you want to go? Which one gives you more chances for the win?
Precisely so.
But still, I mean, he's got to make a move, right?
But look, the key is finding king h1 and realizing that that's long-term great for him.
I think he'll find that.
That's going to be the magic moment. If he finds that, kudos to the world champion for showing just how great he is, because that's a fantastic move now.
But, I would, I would really want to resist playing king h1.
Of course.
I think I would probably find rook e3 a lot easier to play than king h1 because I want to double the rook.
That's true.
And I just want to avoid that knight e5 trick. That knight e5 takes f3 perpetual
rook e3.
trick.
And what's wrong with rook e3?
I don't know.
That looks great.
Yeah, that would be the move that would get
Black
mine.
is trying to unpin, so let's try king e7.
And then I get my double.
You pin me along the D line.
Yeah.
That's right. So I got.
And I have no knight move because you take and.
I'm gonna take the rook, and you don't have that perpetual.
Oh, this looks great.
This
looks wonderful. I mean, this looks a lot less.
Very human, let's say.
Very human. But that means that Magnus actually has like multiple choices, which increases his chances of perhaps going in for this line.
Rook takes d4.
Considering that we have multiple ways to deal with this 95 idea.
Well, it's what you're saying. He's got to weigh those advantages. And if you've got rook e3 on tap, if you see rook e3 or king h1, you're saying, oh man, I really like being able to double up and keep. Grandmasters love to pin their opponents and tie them up so that they reduce the opponent's options. And Magnus's approach in this match has been risk averse, right? So anything that, anytime you can tie up your opponent, I'd expect Magnus to go for rook takes d4. And
okay,
rook e3.
check this out, because that looks so compelling, but it's a long-term problem.
King f7.
Yeah, if you look at the line with rook ed3, going to your line after, it's rook ed3.
Well, I just went rook takes d4. I went rook e3. What do you want to do?
King e7.
Oh, king e7. Okay. Rook e3 to d3. Yes, Maurice?
Yes, and rook c2.
Rook c2.
I know. I looked at this move and I thought it was ridiculous, but the agent's saying this is the best try.
Because you've got ideas of undermining my bishop. So
correct.
I'm going to fall for it. Bishop takes pawn.
And now c5.
Whoa, where
Here
did
we
that
go.
come from?
Counterplay. Counterplay.
Rook comes down to d6.
c4.
Whoa.
Yeah, time to upset the apple cart. Now black has a rambunctious pawn running down the board.
He does indeed.
And you are hanging with
Well,
your...
I'm still pinning. I got you tied up, dude.
Rook d4 is just c3. Like, there's no tie-up. We got one clear plan. We're pushing our pawn. Push him, baby. Push him, baby. That's our only counterplay. Push the pawn. Until you prove otherwise, we're pushing our pawn.
That's a remarkable line.
And by the way, be careful, because 95 is back on the storyline.
That could come into play.
Like, if you play bishop b5 right now.
I'll play bishop to c4, and I'm going to play for gift me your pawn. Bishop to c4, Maurice. Gift me your pawn.
Rook c1 check.
Rook c1 check? Okay, I'm not sure, but king g2.
You got to play c2.
Hold on.
Bro.
That's honorary counterplay right there.
Push it, baby. That c4 that looked dead on c6. Now it's suddenly in the game.
I just got to ask you one thing, though. What's happening with the clocks?
4 minutes for Magnus, 8 minutes for Fabiano.
No way.
Yes, indeed.
I was
not
worried
easy.
about Fabi getting behind
Magnus has been tanking in this position.
Because he's got these good
You guys
options.
actually get to finish your points, and we still don't have him. So
It's
that
crazy.
goes to show you.
But
So
listen,
this is the key moment right
this is
here.
key. He has to if he finds the king h1 move, then he doesn't deal with any of this nonsense. He played bishop e6. Check. He's going for the end game. Of course he is. Now he's decided it's time to just bail out and go for this position, because he couldn't find a way to maintain all the advantages. He didn't see king h1. It was in the rook e3 line. He may have seen, but decided too much play. And now he's decided, let me go for something that I saw instantly. He saw bishop e6 and rook d4 instantly, but he wanted more. He didn't want this end game. He wanted more from it. Now he is stuck playing this end game, hopefully enough. But that c-pawn is still counterplay.
Without question, Maurice, because we know that rook endings where you're pawn up, as nice as they are, if the other side has an active rook or a passer, the counterplay in these rook endings, even when you're pawn up, tends to be enough for the weaker side to draw the game. And then it's like, oh no, why did I go into that ending?
Yeah, in fact, there are positions where if a guy attacks your pawn, instead of playing some passive rook move, you say, take the pawn, I don't care. Let me get my rook onto the 7th. And this is what black has achieved in this position, not by normal state of affairs, but by default. He's here now. Active king, active rook, pass c-pawn. E-pawn will be blockaded. White does have a weak pawn on a3, so he will have to pay attention to that as well. I mean, black has clear lines of counterplay despite being a pawn down. Now, let's make this point. That king h1 move that he had to play, not only see, but also play. That was so counterintuitive.
Absolutely.
I do not care what engine you have looking at that. You go, oh, yeah, just play king h1. You play king h1. I'm not burying my king in the corner like that. That was not an easy move at all to find.
Yaz's idea must have
rook
been
e3 was much more
Rook e3 is more natural, but given Carlsen's ability to see very deeply, he started seeing those lines. He started realizing the c-pawn was flying down the board. Rook c2 was a tricky move.
Rook c2 and c5
and c5 and c4, and boom, boom, boom. Suddenly there's big counterplay. So Magnus had to analyze all that, all those dangers, see counterintuitive moves. Again, even if he saw them, to actually play them very hard. And now, only 3 minutes on his clock does Magnus have to 8 minutes by Fabi. And this is an easier position by far, for obviously, for Fabi to play.
No question.
Now a check on the board, attacking his king. Looks like he should step towards.
He played rook d1 check?
Yes, rook d1. It looks like he should go to the e-file and not let this pawn just fly down the board. But he could theoretically go to the c-file. I'm a little worried.
Don't forget, if you go king c7, which I would prefer because I would like to support the c-pawn, after e5, you could get the rook behind.
Right, and f4, and I'm threatening king f1 with other nasties. I'm a little scared.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. As much as you would like to hang around your c-pawn and support its
so putting you on the spot, Yaz, what's more likely in this game, a draw or a win for Magnus? If you had
draw.
Okay.
I think a draw has a higher probability, in my view, than a win, because
all rook endings are drawn.
And because all rook endings are draw, and because of the passive king that is currently stuck, and the fact that I can see counterplay.
And the c-pawn. There's clear counterplay.
I can see
and the weak pawns for white. You got to deal with this a3 pawn as well.
And the clock.
and the clock. There's so many.
Very significant.
By the way, Yasser or
Yes,
Jen,
please.
was it Tarish or Tartakower who said all rook endings are drawn?
I think it was Tarish.
Tarish. Yeah.
Right? I think
We'll
it's
check
pretty
you.
sure.
We'll
That
check
was
on that. He
Tarish,
was the
but
one who
we've
also said music and chess like music has the power to make men happy.
Yeah.
And women.
Well, there will be a very happy
Again.
Fabi if he can pull off this draw. He has played
yeah.
actively. Give him credit, despite the fact that he was going to be worse in those lines.
That knight b5.
That knight b5 line would just look. If Magnus had found the moves, it would have been real problems for him. But he said, I'm not going passive against this guy. I go passive, he's going to squeeze. That Magnus loves to squeeze.
With the two bishops?
He turns you into an orange
Jennifer,
real
sorry.
quick, not
Sorry,
with that
but
position.
Once again, the clock
2 minutes on the clock for
significant.
Magnus. 2 minutes on the clock, 7 minutes for Fabi. 7-2 and ticking.
3-1 edge, and we got to
Big
move.
edge.
We got to move. F4, right? Jen?
F4, that looks like what we've got. Yes.
Okay, so Magnus is putting his majority on the king side to use, and he's eyeballing e5 and rook check. But there's a king to f5. Okay, so let's see it. So we'll start with the obvious c5 for counterplay purposes, right? We're going to go d6?
Let's get the live board up, please, because I'm afraid moves are going to get
Okay.
played. So let's
Okay,
keep that.
I'll put
there.
it on the live.
Okay, so now we have this.
I'm expecting c5. What else?
Well,
you want to go after this pawn?
Not
Be
that
my
way.
guess.
I would have done it with rook b3 to try to make you passive with your rook.
Well, then
even though your king gets released, but maybe I'd have something there. But you have e5 that I'm worried about.
Well, what
But let's start
intentions-
active. Let's start active. Let's go active, as you said.
c5. Now, rook here, king here, then e5 check? Okay,
King
let's see if I can
King
guess
d6?
Magnus's concept here. He gets to move his pawn with a check forward,
King up.
and he gets to check you.
Okay, so
Now,
now
here
big moment.
you've got to take a deep breath and ask yourself, how active do I want to be? Because
I want to be active.
Well, okay.
I just don't want to lose the game because of that stupid pawn.
I've got a winning move. I've got a winning threat. E7 is a winning threat because
Correct.
if you drop your rook back, I've got rook d8.
Oh, so can I play king f3?
I will play check.
Not a nice guy.
Not a nice guy.
And now king g4, you play rook e1,
Correct.
and then I cry. Okay.
And then you start crying
Yeah, I
because
believe
this
that.
guy is really fast.
All right, so that means, okay, so check is a big problem because of e6. E6 looks like a real move.
Real move.
Although, no, okay, you have
got
d7 coming. Jeez.
Yeah.
So wait, how did you guys get
How
to this
do I-
again?
Well, the way we did it is from the current position. I went f4, c5. I attacked the pawn. The king defended the pawn. I played e5 with a check, followed by another check, followed by e6.
What if I play rook e2 here? Let's make a move.
Rook e2.
And boy, Fabi has got to look at this. He's spending all his clock time here.
By
king
the way,
f1,
the-
rook e3.
King F1, that's a
the
goodie.
Mercury on
Went
my,
high. King
yeah,
e3. I mean, rook e3, excuse me.
Rook e3, rook
There's
e1.
rook e1.
And rook e1.
That's
okay,
why King
so,
F1 was a great move, yeah.
Yeah,
King
it's-
F1.
it's-
So
Nice
now,
one.
so now the issue becomes: can he get you to push the pawn?
I think you got to drop your rook back right now, right here. I'm sorry to say. I think it's time to bring the
Right.
guy
If you play
home.
rook b6, e7, rook e6.
I got rook e1 check to trade
Yeah, and then you win
No,
again.
you're right. I think this rook
Right.
has to go back,
All the
and then
way.
you have to count on your king and c pawn doing the job.
rooks. Right. You
But hey,
burned your bridges.
it's Fabi who's now in the tank, guys, and I don't know. I'm
It's a
starting
critical
to think
position.
of obviously hugely on Team Fabi, big believer, but I'm more feeling like 50-50 now. I mean, obviously him tanking for the last few minutes.
It shows a nervous sign for everybody. Like, hey, look, I got issues.
Well, also it's these
He
lines
did
that
play
you're
C5.
showing. It's these lines that you're showing as well.
Yeah, he did play c5.
50-50, that is that it's a draw of 50, that it's a win for Maggie.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that 1% chance, yeah.
Exactly. Something weird, blunder a rook, or whatever it is. So c5, and again, it's only a 10-second bonus. These players for the last 2 weeks have been getting 30-second bonuses.
And rook d5
so they've
on the
got to
board.
make adjustments to
Well,
this
I
different
wouldn't be
time
surprised
control.
if in the training period for the last couple of days they've played some games to kind of get used to it. because there's so much at stake. Both teams.
And the blitz, too, the 5-3 on the outside chance of
It was actually Sergei Karyakin who said in an interview in New in Chess that when he got to the tie breaks, he realized that he had prepared for the blitz but not the rapid.
What?
That he'd played a lot of blitz training games but not rapid.
Guys,
Okay.
by the way,
we've
the
got
game,
C5, rook
the
D5.
game and rook C2, the game is afoot. The reality is now, by the way Magnus has played, he's allowed this C-pawn to be real counterplay.
Ooh.
The pawn can go to C4, can go to C3. The rook can't just start gobbling up things, and he can't also figure out an easy way to get his E-pawn going. So black has real counterplay here.
So you're saying there's a 3-result game?
It is not a 3-result game. It is still a 2-result game.
I was a bit confused by the rook D5.
Rook D5.
Instead of rook C1, you like?
Yeah. Why is the rook so great on
I think
D5?
he thought that C4, rook C5, and he'd get behind the pawn, etc. By the way, the engine's like that also. The C-pawn gets a C for black. It's fine for black because the pawn's going really fast. This game is all about that counterplay on the C-pawn.
Right.
So now this move, rook C2. Magnus is in the tank. Is that true?
Is it time to bring our king over to deal with this pawn?
I'm no, you might have to give up your H-pawn to pull that off.
I understand.
And you haven't made any real progress yet.
Well, I'm just saying that
H4 has been played.
Well, the moment Jen says, "Is it a 3-result game?" is when I start, when I start thinking to myself, "Well, I'm going to take that H pawn off the board." I get worried. H4 is on the board, Jen. And again, what's the clock time? Sorry to keep
3 to
asking
1.5. 3 minutes for Fabi, 1.5 for Magnus.
Oh, boy.
With H4 on the board. He should play
with
C4
a
now.
very, very double
Blitz rook endgame with the world championship hanging in the balance.
Woo!
Oh, my goodness.
Holy cow. Boys and girls.
Boys and girls.
Hold on to your hats for this
Have
one.
your hats.
But he's got to go now for the C4 idea and make him think
it's
about
mandatory. It's simply mandatory. Now, of course, after C4, Fabi has to look at rook A5, C3, rook takes A6 check when he's 2 pawns down in a rook ending. But guess what? That pawn on C3 is huge. He's just threatening to go rook D2 and C2, and he's played it. He's played it.
Look at this line. Look at this line. Talk about a 3-result game suddenly. Oh,
Yeah.
no, forget it. Rook A5 was playable. Rook A5
It was played.
was playable. Well, you have to be really careful about
Was
this.
played or is
No, it
playable?
was not played. F5 check was
F5
played. But
check
you have to
was
worry
played.
about that C pawn because the
Yes.
king, the black king can come towards your rook and prevent you from getting behind this pawn, King D7, and suddenly your rook
my
is wondering,
God.
oops,
Woo.
what's going on?
Wow.
Precisely.
I can't get behind the pawn. Suddenly black's on top.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was a
why
line
he-
Magnus avoided with
With
F5 check.
Very important line. Very important move.
But isn't King
F5.
E7 forced now?
King E7 looks box, and then maybe E5, Maurice? So that only after C3 to play rook C5. Again, these pawns on E5.
King F6 was played,
King
and it turns out
F6.
is indeed the most accurate move Fabi has found, slowing down the E-pawn, keeping his king on F6 for the moment, and the engines are giving no advantage, barely any.
Rook
equal,
C5, rook
equal
C5,
position
rook
now.
C5, rook
yes,
C5.
rook C5 play. Now you should just play C3, and the engine's saying this position is equal.
Really?
Yes.
Because after C3, G4,
He played he played H5, guys. I mean, all the accuracy.
No, I think H5 is a good move because G4.
Stop G4.
Because then he would play E5.
Yeah.
H5 looks very human to me.
But maybe there was some kind of way to pick up all the pawns. If the engine likes it, maybe there was some kind of way to pick up all the pawns after G4. It was very strange. Yeah.
H5.
This is still fine.
Good.
Great
This
to
is
you.
still fine. This is
Yeah.
still fine. It's still fine. Well, but I'm just.
1.5
It's still fine. This is still good.
dude.
1.5 minutes for Maggie, 2.5 for Fabi. Wow.
2.5 for, oh my gosh, Fabi's
So we're playing a
clock is-
2-minute game with 10 seconds.
This
man.
position is still good. I mean, as long as Fabi doesn't blunder, as long as he sees the position clearly, he is fine.
Now-
King F1 is on the board.
It's absolutely mandatory, in my view, for White's king to come on over and deal with this passed pawn. And now C3, right? Are we expecting anything other than C3? Or maybe we are. We could play. Well, I don't know. Is
No,
rook
C3 is so natural. I mean,
Exactly. So King F1 on the board. And Maurice, what's the engine's top line?
triple zeros in this position, by the way. C3, A4, A5.
C3, A4, A5. King E1, let's say, then.
And then simply rook A2.
Rook A2. Okay,
Correct.
I get it.
You don't touch the A pawn. Don't even think about it.
And you're hitting this E4 pawn,
So
and he
let's
trades.
make the point. Oh no, you played rook C3. Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
After King F1, we have Rook C3 on the board.
Yes. Hopefully that's also equal, but it has been played. Rook C3.
Okay.
He is very much still in this game, is black.
Yeah.
But he's not playing necessarily the easiest move. King G2 is on the board.
Accurate.
That one, the engines really don't like.
King G2.
Correct, because now you could take the pawn on A3.
Okay.
King G2, Rook A3, Rook C4, and after King E5, what you got?
Well, yeah.
What's up, Doc?
I mean, this looks like it's going to be a draw. Guys.
That one is.
Whoa.
No?
You guys are a little bit fast on me. I'm thinking King takes E4, Rook takes. You haven't proved it yet.
No, but how do you get away from? Sorry, how do you get away from my checks?
Rook A2 check, yeah.
How do you get away from these checks? Sooner or later, your G pawn's going to hang.
I'm going to hang out over on H3.
Well, that was easy.
Black with 45 seconds
45
left.
seconds. Okay, let me update my current position,
Yes,
guys.
let's update it.
And he has captured on A3.
He did.
Okay.
And he captured on C4, and he did play King E5. So now we're looking at Rook
And it looks like we also have Rook
C7.
C7 on the board. If you
It's
take a
the
look at the position
most-
on the right, and King takes E4. We see
Most
here.
natural moves.
Yes, now we're seeing. So the check, the key is, can
Okay.
you leave?
It looks like we got Rook E7 check. If you see that position on the right, that is a live board.
And
He played Rook E7 check. He didn't take on G7.
It looks like he played Rook E7 check, indeed.
And
Okay,
now,
that's an
and now
intermezzo.
Ceci is giving a win
What?
for White.
Why?
White is now
Why?
winning the game.
How?
He's going to take the H pawn as well as
No.
everything on this board.
I don't understand. What do you mean? Wait, what?
So if you go,
What?
okay, we have this position,
Oh,
Jen.
are you saying Rook E7 check was a really good move?
Yes.
Not because it's forcing my king to move, so you can't do Rook A2 check. Was that the
Correct.
difference? Oh.
Correct. It is now lost. This position is lost for black.
But what's the difference after Rook takes pawn? If this is winning now, why wasn't winning after just taking on G7 right away? Why is Rook A2 check such a big deal if I can go King H3?
I think the difference is, Jen, that the king is on a force to F5. So in this position, he could play for Rook takes F5.
Oh, so this would be like okay, yeah.
So he forces the king to get to the F5 square with this beautiful intermezzo move, which is really easy to miss. I missed it. Rook E7 check. I mean, I was just taking the pawn without consideration.
Well, of course.
But
I mean,
Rook
We
E7,
have a game right now, Rook on G5. Your H pawn is dropping. You have no way of dealing with these pawns. Fabi is now in a lost endgame.
He did play after Rook E7 check, King takes F5.
These two Rook moves that Magnus played in the game, Rook D1 and Rook E7 check.
But Fabi had such
Fabi
had other ways. This is over.
This is over.
Fabi had other ways.
Rook endgame.
Not playing with C3, not playing aggressively with C3, instead of allowing White's king to come up the board. That was where he lost the game.
And we were twice. You mean with C3, right?
Yes, exactly.
C3 in the middle game and in the end game.
Yes, exactly. That move.
And so you're saying that after this Rook C3 line, he was actually lost?
He was a lot. Well,
Rook takes A3, Rook E7 check was probably losing.
So where was our last moment?
First of all, we can talk about that later.
Yeah,
let's just keep a look at this board
so
right now.
you're saying this is totally lost.
This
why
position,
why is this totally lost?
There's no way to stop the pawn.
Because the king will, you see, this pawn, Fabi's pawn will go to A2. And he'll constantly be looking for an opportunity to play Rook G1 check and make a queen. So what White's king is going to do is actually going to step in front of the G pawn. Okay, the king will come to G4, then White will play Rook check, and he will nurse his H pawn up the board, and this pawn on A4 will not give counterplay when White's king is in front.
That's one way, Yasser. Another way, I mean, how do you stop the pawns from marching?
Just G4, G5, H4, H5.
G4, check you first, make you go back, then play. I just keep marching. This is math.
Okay, agreed.
Right? That's
agreed.
easy. There's nothing to do. Your rook can't move because Rook A2 happens all the time.
I like my king in front of the pawn to escort the guy up the board.
Oh, agreed. But I'm just saying that this.
It's bad.
It's not like you have to think now because there are multiple ways to win. Fabi blew this rook ending in this position.
We think, Jen, that once we saw the move King F1 way back here, this was the moment that well, first of all, H5 apparently wasn't needed. The immediate
You
C3.
did not need H5.
Okay, but
were
H5
thinking
is very sympathetic.
Easily,
Yeah.
easy. I understand that move.
C3 was the key.
The C3 was the key, and then after, I think it was King E1, A5, A4. Somehow we got this position.
That was not easy to see, by the way.
But Rook C3 is sympathetic too. So you're saying Rook C3 is actually lost because of that in-between move?
Yes.
That was the moment of no return.
That was right. That this is it right here.
Now, do you think Magnus saw that entire line or just assessed some?
I think he was just playing.
Yeah.
I think he was just making moves.
And here,
I
of
think
course,
it was like the accidental victory. You know, I mean, because everybody was looking at Rook G7.
But that's what happens when you have a better position. Sometimes you get the accidental victory. That's the whole point of getting the better position in Blitz, right?
That's right.
But yeah, so I mean, obviously we're on Team Fabi, but not to minimize Magnus's
fantastic recognition of an opportune moment.
I mean, kind of a great game in my view with these two moves.
The other thing that he did,
moves.
the other thing that Magnus did is, you see why he's so great at rapid. He played very practically. When he sat on the board and he said, I don't know that I can win that other position. That looks a little sharp. That moves look a little confusing. Even if he saw King H1 to actually play it, he said, I don't know about all that. Let me go into something where I have no losing chances, but I do have winning chances. Exactly. Let me keep some time on my clock. Let him find all the right moves. I'm not the one losing. So if this is a draw, it is what it is. He doesn't need maximal results. Right. Fabi had to play perfectly down the pawn, and he was doing really well, but he missed this couple of moments to be very active with the C3 move, and that's all it took for the world champion to say, no. You got to play better chess if you're going to survive these end games. And Magnus showed why he is indeed the champ. And now here he is.
Going to just play the move G4, by the way, everybody. Just as Maurice is saying, you can play G5 and Rook check. I'm thinking King H4, King G5. Put the king in front of the pawns and then get the check.
That wins. Over. That wins. That's over. Is better than one?
Yes, I am.
And he has played King H4. The king will land on G5.
The king is coming to G5. The Rook will come to this. And Fabi will go down in this first game. We thought we had this conversation yesterday, Maurice, and we were both emphatic in our belief that games 1 and 2 were absolutely vital for Fabi.
Yes, and we see this position on the board now.
Well, game 2 comes after game 1, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So he's got the white pieces in game 2.
Yeah, but the pressure's on now.
Oh,
the pressure's on. He's got to win one. He had to win one anyway, so I never think +1 is enough. If you lose by +1, it's like, but you had to win one anyway.
Exactly.
So if you don't win one, then of course you're supposed to lose.
Well, I just feel like this game, to me, I'm not that shocked that Magnus won because that opening looked kind of brutal. The size of the advantage for Magnus.
B5,
no,
A6.
Don't blame the opening. He was
C6, B5, A6. That makes a very strange impression.
Guys, he had multiple ways. Don't start just targeting the opening.
Yeah. It's not just the opening, but I do feel that it put him in a tough position. It seemed like a lot of fun for Magnus.
What are you talking about? He was up lots of minutes on the clock in a drawn rook and pawn ending. That you pray for that.
But
you just have to find the moves.
Phenomenally accurate play.
After not totally accurate, just good enough to get to this position.
But Fabi was down
and good thoughts.
Yeah, but Fabi was down a pawn.
And here we see the game.
By the way,
White has actually got 2 extra pawns. Fabi playing on. We know that there are some, incredible stalemate type situations.
Hold on, what's the clock time? It looks like they're on increments.
Yeah, they were basically playing on increments.
But okay, 2 extra pawns for.
But let's just put it this way:
Magnus.
It wasn't what Fabi fed, and Magnus has won the first game of the Rapids. And no, I just believe that Fabi did not get what he wanted out of this game. It put him in a very tough situation from the get-go.
I'm with you. Why don't you see it that way, Maurice?
Because he's wrong.
Look, here's the deal. Sure, you want to get a good position. As we see there, Magnus has done the best he could possibly do by winning the very first game right away and putting the pressure on the challenger now in must-win situations. Maybe not this next game, but certainly in one of the next 3, and certainly getting also white twice. He's got to hope that that's going to be enough. But let's make this clear. This is my opinion on this, guys.
Okay, sure.
Here's the deal. If I give you the black position and I said, you're going to have black, you're going to get, and this is what I'm mailing in for you, Yasser Seirawan. I'm going to give you a rook and pawn ending where you have an active rook and a passed pawn and an active king. More active rook, more active king, centralized king. Your opponent's king is cut off. You're down a pawn, but you have 3 times the guy's time, and he's at a minute and a half.
Right.
And you got black.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that situation for yourself?
Very good.
Exactly.
I agree.
If that's what you play for.
Agreed.
You say, give me a rook and pawn ending where I'm active and I should draw this position. I just need to find the right moves.
Correct.
You beg for that if you have black. That you design. If that's what you said, this is what you're going to get. You say, that? Yeah, bring it. I'll show you what I know. Right. So that's what I'm saying. I think Fabi had to engineer some shark-infested waters, indeed, to get to that situation. Yeah. But once he got there, he's supposed to say, I know this is drawn. I will tell you, he walks off stage right now saying, I know that was drawn.
I spoiled it.
I spoiled it somehow.
Yeah.
I feel badly about myself for not holding that position. He's not thinking he was lost. He knows that he had chances there.
It's not that he was lost the whole game, but putting yourself in that kind of tightrope, it's...
But that's what 2800s are for. Just like Yasser just said, for him, it's not a tightrope.
He got a lot better. I think for most of the black games, he didn't get such a big disadvantage in the match.
That's irrelevant.
Well, it's I think it's relevant because in rapid,
that's completely irrelevant.
Really tough.
That's completely irrelevant. The pass is done.
Of course, the pass is done.
Play present this position. You get this position. I think all his handlers will say, you get a position where you're down in a rook and pawn ending, where your rook is more active, your king is more active. You got to pass pawn. You got to draw that game.
Sure, but how is it irrelevant that he did way better with black in the regular match? I mean, of course, like if he got one of this position in the match, we would be like, wow, Magnus got so much with the white pieces.
Right.
And we had time to look at all those variations.
Yeah. Well, first of all, again, that rook ending, I really think that Maurice is right. 2800s are supposed to hold that. I think time factors, rapid chess, the moment.
You still think it was more likely if for instance, if we ran that exact situation 100 times with those same 2 players?
I think the majority of the time is going to be a draw.
I agree with you, but I'm feeling like it would be 60-40. I don't think it would be like 90-10.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean,
the
4 versus 2 majority was very, very serious. Here's where I have a problem with Maurice and saying about the opening, because literally from the opening, black was under pressure, and Fabi got into a position where he had to show some real, nifty, nimble moves just to get to that rook ending. We were looking at rook takes d4, king f7, and king h1 was a computer move, rook e3, and we were looking at this position. And this was really, super difficult for black. Black had to find all kinds of only moves, Jen. I think Fabi will not be happy with his opening. He just got into a position which, in my opinion, was hard. And by the way, we're going to have a very special guest.
I'm not actually. I'm hearing that. That we might not get Gary, so that's something that his plans have unfortunately changed. But I'm sure we'll at least get.
By the way, is it happening to you? I just want to say this, that we're getting enormous numbers of interview requests. I was on the radio yesterday with Rex. We went downtown to go on a radio program. It was amazing.
Oh,
and then today I had another radio interview just before we coming on the show.
Yes.
Media is coming out of the woodwork.
Oh, it's awesome. And I actually saw that this morning on the Today Show, a friend of mine, Kimberly...
The CBS Today Show?
The Today Show in New York.
Sorry.
Michael McVeigh, she's a member of the U.S. Chess Women's Committee. She's like an awesome person. She was actually a volunteer at the World Championship.
In New York?
In London, but she couldn't make it for the tie breaks. I guess she was hoping that there would be a winner before that.
Back home she goes.
But yeah, they interviewed her in the Today Show, and she was talking about how impactful it would be for U.S. chess if Fabiano were to win the World Championship. Of course, this is not a good start, Yaz. I'm not going to lie.
Absolutely.
It's a very, very bad start. But luckily, he does get the white pieces in the next game.
Exactly.
And we are watching the highest-rated World Championship in history, as we have the 2 top players in the world facing off. And while if you look at the quality of the games, you can see that strength seeping from the moves. Carlsen, #1 player in the world. Caruana, #2 player in the world. This game, guys, if it was in the Classical, I'm feeling like Caruana would have defended because it's all been about amazing defense in this match. But that's the problem. incredible Zwischenzug. Rook
Rookies.
E7 check,
So
hard
easy
to find.
It's so easy to miss.
On the 10-second increment, but look at some of these others.
Yeah.
We've got Carlsen Anand was the second closest.
But look at how it's a creep. Each year, every passing 2 years, it's like the average has creeped higher and higher and higher. It's been very consistent, almost logarithmic, all the way up to this highest average 28.33. I love that graphic of 1972. That was the year that I got involved in chess. I was attracted to the Fischer Spassky. That was a #1 versus #2 for the time. Comparing all, Gelfand, for example, was #20. Kramnik, when he played in 2008, was #6, and so on. So #1 versus #2.
I mean, I'm absolutely,
and prize money, by the way.
I'm totally blown away by the level of play in this match. Let's go to prize money, as we saw that because of the draw that we had 2 days ago, they're actually playing for a little bit less money. If the match is decided, I'm sorry, the winner gets a little bit less money.
Yeah.
If the match is decided by tiebreak games, the winner gets 55% of the €1 million purse, as opposed to 60%.
Right.
But I don't
so
think these players.
If we had a decisive winner in Game 12, they would have won 600,000 euros. And the runner-up 400,000. Now it's 550,000 euros to the winner.
That's right, but this is all about the title,
The
retaining
extra
the title,
50,000 isn't
gaining
meaningful.
the title.
No, it's
exactly.
the fame that comes, and the prestige, of course, that comes with the championship title. Jennifer, I'm kind of the thing I feared most. I want to put it like that has occurred in Game 1.
Well, hey, you know what, Kramnik? I'll tell you this. Kramnik came on the line and said, in Game 12, it couldn't be going worse for Fabi. The opening is terrible. The clock situation is terrible. But that one turned out for Fabi as Magnus surprisingly offered a draw.
Correct.
So here we are today. Couldn't have started worse.
Right.
Magnus wins the first game.
Right.
So can Fabi surprise us all and come back in this match? What do you think? He's white. He's gotten some dazzling advantages with white.
I was looking for you to console me. How did you turn it back around? Yes, he can, Jennifer. Yes,
all right,
he can. But
let's,
I don't like it.
Let's get
Maurice.
real. Let's look at some things right here.
Exactly.
Let's try to get some instruction for our audience. This end game is the one we were talking about. And
right.
This is the one when you get an end game that's supposed to be drawn. You know in your heart you've done everything you're supposed to do. You've clamped his rook down. Even his pawn structure, h5, may not have been the best way to play, but is definitely a good way to play. So he was in the right direction. You've got this. You're only down a pawn in a rook and pawn ending when you know you've got the activity, you've got the rook. So what is the most important thing we know about rook and pawn ending? Stay active. Stay active, active, active. Keep the guy's king cut off. Don't let him get any progress. So in this position, I'm going to give you one line. Here he played rook c3. That was already wrong direction. You're releasing the king from prison. Yeah. This is not what you want to do. All right, so that's big mistake number one. Thinking that you're down a pawn. This is a problem. Tigran Prigozhin used to say, when you sacrifice a pawn, the late great world champion from Armenia said, when you sacrifice a pawn, don't act like you sacked it. Don't act like you lost it. Act like you sacked it. Right? You sacrifice, like I gave you the pawn. You got the pawn, big deal. I did it on purpose. I'm not greedy to get my pawn back. That's not the first thing I'm after. This move looks like it's trying to get his pawn back, but guess what? He doesn't even get his pawn back. He's exchanging an A pawn for his C pawn. That looks like a bad idea. You play rook. I mean, why would you do that? Rook C3, King G2, Rook A3. That was not what you wanted. Now remember, time pressure, the circumstances, all that. We understand he made this mistake, but just from a real technical standpoint, that's not what you want to do. Rook c3 was a mistake. c3 instead. Now, white is frozen. White's like stuck. This pawn is going down the board. His rook can't just leave. If his rook checks, then this king marches up the board and comes into the position. So he can't do that. So he's making sure this guy is cut off for the moment. King e1, now rook g2. Rook c3, king e5. Check out this line. Even giving up a second pawn to get this position is still fine for black here. The activity of the king, the rook is cut off. This rook is super passive. Your pawn's about to be attacked. If you play king f1, rook a2. Again, an incredible position, guys, where black is saying it's all about keeping your king cut off and keeping my rook active and keeping my pieces active. Activity in rook endings is the key, even down a pawn. Even here, down 2 pawns. And I'll follow the line, rook c7 that we saw before. And it doesn't even matter what you play now. This rook check doesn't do anything because
King F3.
King F3 suddenly becomes ruh-roh juicy. Even King F5, by the way, is playable, believe it or not. But why would we even play that when we have this move on the board? I'm going to show you King F5 just to show you, and then rook takes G7, rook G5 check, King E4, rook takes, and we're back on F3 again.
Right.
And now your rook check drops this guy, and pawns are hanging, and it's again a draw. It's all about staying active. And this is what I was saying, and I see Yasser, you'd be like, yeah, that's what we do in rook and pawn endings.
That's what we do.
That's what he had to do. He had to engineer with those 8 or so minutes on his clock to understand that activity trumped material, especially in rook and pawn endings. He knows that. It's just the pressure of the moment, time, situation, all of it cascaded on him. And, Jen, to your point, that he'd been defending so long and he had to keep defending.
You're right.
That cost him. But
I was just
he should have
impressed.
drawn.
I mean, I was really impressed by Magnus's play in that game. Rook D1 was an awesome move.
It really
Rook
was.
E7 check.
Against Knight D6.
Yeah.
That was really, really good. Rook E7. That was a beautiful hidden gem. Kudos for Magnus there. But again,
those small rook moves, right?
Yeah,
Those short rook moves. It's like a creeping. We talk about creeping moves with the queen because you're used to spectacular long moves with the queen, but sometimes it's those little queen moves. Here it was the creeping rook moves.
Yeah.
Just move the rook one square.
And just queen takes d8 too, just trading off queens by Magnus. There was something about his control and understanding that was simply better. But I completely agree with you, Maurice. When you get in that position of a rook and pawn endgame and you're playing bullet chess, you're playing c3 and rook a2 and king e5 kinds of moves automatically because you just have to stay active. And like you say, you know, don't play like you're pawn down. Play like you sacrifice the pawn for active play. And that was a very, very big difference. Put it in perspective for us. Okay, obviously...
We're on game 2, by the way. We're on game 2, and good news, everyone. We've got a
has to
Sicilian.
win.
We've got a Sveshnikov Sicilian, the same line Fabi's been playing. I'm thrilled about this from not only the Fabi fan perspective, but even the fan perspective in general, because we're going to get an exciting game. Fabi's going to get a chance now to... get a dynamic, sharp game like we've had in all of the white positions since he's been playing the Open Sicilian.
Exactly. No more Rossalimos. Those Rossalimos with Bishop B5 were just not bringing home the bacon.
And the 97 move was played as well, so we can catch up to that
Game
position.
12, where...
Game 12, where 97 in games 8 and 10...
Magnus was in trouble after Knight B8.
Knight B8, and Fabi dictated the pace in
That's
those
right.
2 games.
He got more time on the clock, got better positions out of the opening, but Knight E7, the opposite was the case, wasn't it?
Right. Okay, so after Knight E7,
C4,
last time,
Knight G6.
Also in my day, C2, C3 was considered dangerous, but C4. Now, Knight F5 was the old move in Game 12, Knight G6 was played. Are we up to date with the play?
Oh, not at all. We're still going. They're going down the line.
Knight
Queen
G6,
A4, Bishop D7.
Not H4, but Queen A4, right? Queen A4, Bishop D7, Queen B4. This was Game 12, and Magnus did not play the move Queen B8 in Game 12. He played Bishop F5.
But in this game, he did play Queen B8.
He did play Queen B8.
So
okay, because I actually thought Queen B8 was a better move. And after Queen B8, we got H4, H5.
Yes.
Okay.
And then Bishop to E3.
Bishop to E3 developing.
A6.
This knight on B5 bothers black a lot, so A6.
Gotta go.
Knight C3.
And now we've got...
Now A5.
Okay.
Queen B3, A4.
Queen B3, A4.
Really? Wow.
Queen B1.
Queen David 1.
Mm-hmm. Bishop
Eyeballing
E7.
H5. Yeah, G3.
And G3. And we're
okay.
up to 8.
And I think Fabi's going to be happy about the outcome of this opening, not about Game 12, because here his play is much easier. He's going to put his king on the king side. He's castling short is white, and he's not putting his king on the queen side.
I like it.
I think that's a lot easier.
And considering the match situation, he's got to be thrilled, right?
Absolutely. Double-edged position. He needs to win. Magnus is going to have to find some pretty crafty defensive moves. Okay, let's see what do you recommend?
Well, obviously,
I'm just saying. Yeah, I don't want to be.
I don't
want to just side with Fabi and just give all the arguments one way.
Right.
Let's be clear. If he loses this game, the match is over.
Clear.
Over.
Question. Yeah.
So a sharp position, unless he's better, unless you can say clearly better, just having a sharp position ain't enough. All right? A sharp position, Magnus might say, yeah, let's go. I've seen you in rapid chess. I know myself in rapid chess. I don't have to defend and draw it, Black.
Right.
I can just keep playing. And if you get a bad position and I play you 2-0, you're done. Correct. You're done.
Correct.
So let's not get too happy. Until he starts controlling this game, I'm not getting happy. I might say, yeah, unbalanced position. It's interesting.
Okay.
But until White says, I got this position on lockdown,
Yeah.
there's no happiness in his heart. His heart is beating fast, and the pressure is on, and he must win one of these 3 games. He doesn't have to win this one. He doesn't have to go all out to win this one. He just needs to keep playing the position as though it's a walk in the park day. Like Kramnik said, don't worry about the situation. Just play your best chess. Look for what you want to do and let the rest take care of it. You start getting all the emotions involved. You know, obviously Magnus played this position. Not like Magnus said, oh, let's play a boring position. Let's play one of those dead positions where I can make a draw. Magnus said, bring it. I'm going to play this sharp position against you. So far in this position, you got nothing against me. Prove it now. And if you try to prove it too hard, you lose. The match is over. 2-0, you ain't coming back from that. That's not going to happen. Okay. So let's not get happy, folks.
I'm happy.
No, I'm happy.
I need to see some moves.
I'm happy.
I mean, I'm ready to go.
You didn't convince me, Maurice.
I'm ready to play Fabi's position. I like the move Queen D1.
I just feel like it's better. It's just obvious math. I mean, I'd rather have 50% chance of win and 50% chance of lose here than draw, just because it's a short match. So let's take our chances.
Yeah, the position is sharp and double-edged, and I agree. Both players are really, really well prepared. I'm just saying that Fabi's position compared to Game 12, so much easier for White to play this than in Game 12, castling long, walking into those attacks with
I'm not disagreeing with any of that.
Was just
I don't think we're arguing
By the
there.
way, Queen C8 played by Magnus.
Queen C8, okay. Eyeballing the pawn on C4, making Bishop G4 possible.
Trying to grab some light squares, that's right, because...
I mean, I'm going to play Bishop E2, and I'm going to grab this pawn on H5, and I think Magnus...
You're going to give up that pawn for the C4?
Is going to say, look, before you grab the pawn on H5, let me at least induce you to play the move B3. So he played Queen C8, right?
Yes.
And we're expecting Bishop E2. That's an automatic. And now the question is Black going to... If Black plays for F5 and F4, he's got to do it with castles. I think. You can't just play F5 and allow Bishop takes H5 when the knight on G6 will be unprotected. So castles is forced, right, Maurice? Is that the engine's number one
The engine is Bishop G4 as the best move against
G4.
Bishop E2, which induces the move F3.
Wow. Okay, just a second. I'm a pawn grubber, you know that. So I'm just looking at bishop takes, pawn takes, and knight takes A4. Queen takes C4.
Knight B6, Queen B4 check.
Queen B4 check. Queen D2. You got Queen E4 also to escape trickery.
Yep.
Okay, so I somehow reluctantly I'm playing F3, but it's kind of funny.
Because Gary didn't like that move in the first game.
Exactly. I'm reluctant to play.
Yeah, I understand why though, because you've created that weakness on G3 now, and you've also stopped yourself from being able to play Bishop takes H5. So
Bishop E2 on the board.
I see why you don't like playing F3.
But
and
Bishop G4.
Clearly, Magnus still in his preparation, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is like a twist off of the last game. He had obviously prepared both of them.
Right. Now, the problem with playing B3 is that after bishop takes E2, my queen has to keep contact with the rook.
So you're saying you have to play
I don't
king
like
takes,
knight
the king takes E2? No.
So B3 would be mistimed. If I castle, I just have to analyze the potential consequence of something as ridiculous as Queen H3. My king is still a little drafty.
Right, and you're thinking about playing Bishop takes H4, but it feels like I should just have takes and F3 in most of those lines, right? Like
yeah. I shouldn't be afraid of the piece sacrifice. Okay, Maurice, give us an update. What do the engines have to say about
Magnus is still looking at this position. The engines like white, but only after bishop g4, f3. Bishop g4, f3, and play that position, and just play it with space. And castle queenside.
Right.
Which we saw happen before in the game, in game 12. But as you start feeling a little bit of echoes from that game, it's not as easy.
No.
Right? It's complex. And, you know, I hate to say it, you know, you're talking about being happy. I'm not happy trying to solve these problems.
Okay.
I'd rather have a clean position until I control it. I don't know what's really going on. But they are saying, though, very good for white from an objective standpoint. Ceci, we have the supercomputer on behind my back, that this is a great position, and it's all about that space.
I'm not surprised.
F3, queen moves, castles, etc.
White seems to always like, computers seem to always like white in these like Sveshnikov lines, and particularly the ones with knight d5, as Matthew Stadler and Natasha Reagan pointed out in an article on Chess 24 where they analyzed Fabi's games with AlphaZero. AlphaZero loves this knight d5 line against the Sveshnikov.
Very intriguing.
And so it seems like it's always saying white's better.
Right.
And that's, you know, and it's a very risky for black. That's why it is a little puzzling. But this was Magnus's plan before the match, and he stuck with it. And hey, it's good for the fans.
I've always thought about that AlphaZero program, and it's just such a phenomenal number. It played 44 million games against itself.
Bishop g4 on the board.
Bishop g4 on the board.
Are you looking at lines with bishop h5, rook h5, bishop g4? Looking to trap that queen, queen h7?
I definitely wasn't looking at those lines.
But they're off the menu now anyway.
Yeah, they were off the menu. Bishop g4 on the board. Okay.
And f3 recommended by far right now. Like by far is the best move.
F3 has the computer's stamp of approval. F2, F3. You know, it's funny. I'm just reluctant to play it, Maurice.
Wait, your board is incorrect. There's a bishop on e3. I don't know how you got your bishop back to c1 on your board.
How did that happen? My bishop to e3. Oh, bishop e3, bishop e7 was played. Sorry. So we must have had bishop e3, bishop. Oops. What?
That's been the case for
bishop e3. Bishop. I must have missed a move. I'm sorry. Bishop e2 and bishop g4. So now I'm up to date with the players.
Right. So
okay.
So f3 is
the recommended move.
We've seen this type of position, but f3 and castle queenside as a plan with that pawn already sitting on a4. There's got to be some memories for Fabi back in his mind going, wait a minute, I've been there before. Right. And now it's not the same assault against my position.
Right.
But. You got to wonder, is it something that you want to do?
Yeah.
Because once you play f3, you're committing yourself to that airy king side.
Correct.
I'm telling you, this is a very difficult decision on his part, despite the fact that f3 is good, according to the engine. This is, again, one of those human moments. Now you have recollection in your brain. Game 12, I was getting mated. I was getting attacked. Do I really want to put my king over there? Is it better now? The circumstance is clearly better. There's no knight f8, d7, c5 on the board already.
Right.
You're not disharmonizing with your rook on h2.
Right.
You're not coming under all of that fire. So it is possible to do. But will he do it? Very difficult human decision right now.
We got a few more moves on the board, guys. Rook c1, bishop takes e2, queen e2, queen f5 are on the board.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm thinking rook c1. I mean, I understand, you know, f3 gaining a tempo, booting the bishop away, but I just didn't like all the weakness it was creating. Rook c1 is one of those tempos that's very useful for white. He knows that the rook is going to be well placed on c1 no matter what kind of middle game position. After the trade, pawn on h5 stands out like a sore thumb. It's a real weakness. You don't, as black, you want to castle, but you don't want to just cough up a pawn for free. And that was why Magnus played the move queen f5 to prepare his castling and protect the pawn on h5. Now, with the rook on c1, I'm starting to think, should I go for ending? Remember when Gary was on our show during Game 12, He was saying the problem with the position was white's king, and he was looking to play the move queen b6 and trade off queens. So imagine we play the move queen c2 here, guys. I'm trying to induce you to trade, and then I'll stick my king in the center, and I'll play for my queen side breaks.
And if I play queen f3?
Queen e4, yeah.
You don't mind me trading and playing f5?
Maybe I do, maybe I don't. It's hard to say.
F4. You take, move. Maybe I don't want to do it like this.
Should I be doing this? Double-edged, once again. I mean, you've got ideas of taking and e4 and taking. And I mean, I would not want to play this without a lot of preparation. I really want to be reassured.
This is sharp. And I want to tell you, as a Sicilian player myself, with black, when it starts getting funky and you can just start dropping some moves come a lot easier.
I know.
Right?
I know.
And you don't worry about when black starts making nice dynamic moves, you want to control black before you punch him in the face. Right? You don't want to start swinging, because black's got gloves too, or actually can take the gloves off and show some knuckles. So you need to be careful here, and I think that Magnus doesn't feel worse in this position.
You're right. Well, the problem I'm having with white is I really want to put my knight on e4, which brings me back to playing the move f2, f3. Unless I'm willing to move my bishop, like something like bishop b6 with the idea.
Sorry, back up. The move c5 is on the board.
Ooh.
Oh, baby.
c5, sharpening it. The Indians hate the move.
That really is triple-edged. Okay,
Triple-edged?
Triple.
Yeah,
That's a new one, yeah.
No, I mean, that's
Triple
where you're...
cream brie.
Well, no, I mean, my new shaver, man, has got like actually, it's got close to 5 blades.
You're not going to be happy, though, because black can just castle here and ask you what your point of c5 is.
Because wait, what was the point of c5? If we take on c5,
I'm assuming queen
b5
check.
Queen b5 check
was maybe an issue.
Can we look
I'm
at
not
that?
sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, as
just
a
to see
pawn grubber,
why he's trying to do this.
as any self-respecting pawn
Or is there
grubber.
something
I
with...
got bishop takes. I'm sorry.
Just bishop takes. Oh, nice one.
Well, it's not the end of
Because
the story.
you can still castle here, right? But then there's d6.
This d6.
Yeah.
So I'm getting that tempo. That could be upsetting.
And this is fun times for black. For white. That's what I meant. I meant for white.
Yeah, it could be upsetting. I could see why black would not want to deal with those issues.
Well, this is the idea, but castles right away.
Castles right away is what Maurice is saying.
That does look like a good move, doesn't it?
It looks like a great move, actually, because it basically asks the question, are you going to waste more time playing c6, or are you going to help me by just trading on d6? The bishop will be fine on d6.
And you don't want to play c6, because trade in d5 looks
not.
very. Oh no, you have a bailout. So maybe you do have a bailout.
I'm going to take that guy.
Yeah, I thought I had queen e4. I thought I had queen e4, but you have knight e7 with check.
The in-between move, yeah.
Is it all over? Maybe you're better after knight takes, knight takes. I'm hitting your c pawn and your rook, but
I'll castle, I'll bail, and I'll be happy.
Bail. Okay, so that
you don't have to play d5. You don't even actually after c6. You could even just say, "What are you doing?" I mean, you could just say, "Are you going to trade?" That doesn't make much sense. But your idea of take and maybe something like, I don't know, can't we just prepare this?
Prepare d5, you mean?
Yeah. Because you can't play knight e4 because of queen d5.
And then
knight d5 because of queen e4.
And there's still a knight takes e7 check, but then at the end of the variation, c6 is going to be hanging.
Yes.
Right.
So that's the key. So castling is not going to
That's
save
bad.
the day.
Yeah. That's bad is what it is.
Maurice, what do you have for us?
I do have that.
You've got something crazy on your board.
No, it's not crazy. It's not crazy. It's your
doing
line.
On a5.
It's the same line. It's just the same idea. bc6, dc6, rook f to c8, and now you have to defend this pawn, which you don't want to do. You're sitting there going, why did I do this so that I have to start dealing with this? And now the move rook a5, looking to challenge on the d5 square at some point, and after castles queen e6, and this pawn is coming under heavy fire, guys, really very fast. He cannot hold it up. The engine's saying that it is much better for black right now this position. The center pawns are going to go down the board while you're busy guarding the C pawn. Black's going to have pass pawns as well. For example, in this position, look at this pawn going down the board. And Magnus has indeed castled. I do have that now in the game. Magnus has castled and said this C5 demonstration too soon, no real effect on Black's position. Inge is now saying bail out with CD6 and play that position. And by the way, be very careful, folks. Be very careful, because suddenly there's a tactical idea of knight f4 that is starting to creep into the position. If you castle or not, you have to worry about this move, because a capture pawn takes, the e-file opens, the move f3 could land on the board. If your king is here, there's mating ideas. Black is happy. The mass move c5 has completely thrown away White's advantage. Now White finds himself needing to equalize this position quickly, because Black is developed, got control of the board. I mean, Black is great.
And indeed, we have castles. Sorry. Indeed, we have castles on the board.
I mean, after that explanation, I wasn't willing to challenge him because I think he's right, Jennifer. I'm sorry to say.
Well, C5 is the kind of move that, you know.
It's either great or it's premature.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. And what Maurice is saying is that after takes, castles. Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of this bishop to begin with, but I wasn't realizing that knight f4 could drop on my head. That's really bad news.
Right, because it's easy to look at knight h4 instead, which you've got covered, right?
Yeah, and then I'm dealing with the dual threat of taking my bishop f3, and I could easily get mated after f3 and queen h3. Remember, that bishop on d6 is x-raying h2. So I'm ending up having to play a move that I'm not happy about, queen here.
Be careful, queen h3.
Anyway,
queen e4, f5.
Well, you could take on f4. Oh, you're starting with queen e4.
This looks ultra dangerous.
No, wow. Wish you could play knight e2 checkmate in that position.
Yeah. We're on Team Fabi.
I know. Well,
no piling on over here.
I'm definitely on Team Fabi, but I'm also on Team checkmate. I love to see those checkmates on the board.
Exactly.
Especially for our new.
But it's that knight f4 move that I find so disruptive. Again, I thought that I was going to get the knight to e4, and I thought if I could do that, there was adequate counterplay. Dare I fall back on my stupid queen trade idea?
Start begging. Time to grovel.
That's what I'm saying. Grovel.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Is groveling in order?
You like groveling? What
I'm saying,
what does that mean? You like that idea?
No, hey.
I don't like it at all. We got to grovel?
But I have to grovel, maybe.
What?
Because at least in this case, I'm fighting to castle and put my knight on e4, and I don't have to deal with knight f4. That knight f4 is really
well. That's the thing. In the end game, the knight on g6 will look silly, right? Whereas in the middle game, it's coming up with all sorts of beautiful ideas. That's why trying to wrest the control of the light squares isn't necessarily only groveling. It's trying to find the best move.
Well, yeah, but to diffuse the attacking potential of black with knight f4. That trading off queens, but I don't think Magnus will be so helpful.
So accommodating, he'll just move his queen back, and then the problem is
he may just like queen g4 and force some position like this, where I don't know, one day f5 and you take back with the.
And you always got to watch out for those knight f4 ideas. Wait,
back up. I'm going to tell you something even worse. You really don't want to hear that line, so you can't even grovel. Takes. Queen c2.
Yeah.
Trade.
Take on c2. Okay.
Yes.
I'm kind of
seems
happy.
kind of happy. Rook a5.
Rook a5, preventing knight b5, maybe preparing b5 and b4.
Rook c8 as well is prepared. Okay. Knight e7 is coming, hitting your pawn.
So
you're still in grovel mode.
But if you ever play b5, at least I have bishop b6, right?
Not really.
But
I
think his idea is to play knight e7, Jen. I think.
Now, rook c8 first. Rook c8 first.
So if I go here, knight e7, yeah?
Yes.
Something like this. And I'm the one who ends up a pawn down after rook takes, and Yeah, I get. Yeah.
Also,
not happy.
And
not
also,
happy.
F5 was a move as well.
Well, here you have knight
Earlier.
takes and rook c7, right?
Which, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But
I mean,
I'm
we're
not
winning
playing
back our
for.
pawn.
Yeah, I'm not playing for a win though.
Because there's knight f5, right? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Darn it.
Yeah.
And
I will add that there was an F5 possibility there for black as
I
well.
saw that one. Yeah.
That could have popped in to play an F4 on you and
Right.
not create some other possibilities as a problem.
Exactly.
Not in this position. I'm
Yeah,
talking about
I
in the
understand.
endgame position, but even here.
Even here, it looks like there's potential for black. I'm all, from game 12, echoes of game 12 once again. Remember, we were always worried about this e5, e4, and the knight coming nicely to e5, even at the cost, by the way, of an h-pawn. It just happens that we're not even a pawn down anymore.
I'm sorry to say, right now, Fabi is looking at this position.
The more
He's been looking at it for a long time. C5 was a really bad move, and I think it represented a bad attitude about the position.
A bad attitude?
Yes, the wrong attitude is what I mean. Because if you're thinking, I have to win this game, you think you have to play like you have to win.
Right.
And that attitude is a different attitude than if you just say, I got 3 games to go. Yes, you're up 1. Let me chill. But he might have had the memory of the last game in his mind when he looked at the position. He said, I got to win now. I got to take my chances. I got to play aggressive moves. If I see them, go for them. As opposed to what you had, Yasser, was like, let me squeeze you. Let me treat this like it's the same attitude that Kasparov had when he had to win the last game against Karpov in Seville.
Right.
C6 on the board, not an aggressive move, a defensive move. Remember that attitude Kasparov said? He said,
Play.
just play. I'm going to play 100 moves. Whatever. Let's do what it takes. Don't just swing at the guy because you feel like you have to win. That's a champion's attitude. Kasparov showed that path. Just because you have to win doesn't mean that you have to play sharp. Doesn't mean that you have to immediately make the game dynamic and crazy. Put the pressure on the guy. You got white. Just keep playing and show how strong you are. Right now, a world of trouble for Fabi as he's had to play c6. His c-pawn is now a target.
This is the line where you came up with a really nice move. This move, rook a5, that's
I'm not taking credit for it. That's an engine move.
But that's a hidden gem.
But that move is really strong.
To cover d5 and to set up this queen
e6 possibility.
And if you ever force trades, then d6, d5, and the c6 pawn is artificially isolated, kind of ahead of supply lines. So this move, rook c8, okay, that's a real challenge.
Take a look at.
And by the way, you don't even need to play rook a5. It looks like I was wondering why you couldn't play queen e6 immediately. Try that. Takes. Rook to c8, queen c4. Why not challenge immediately with the move queen to e6?
I thought knight d5 was the reason.
Right.
Because that was why.
Rook a5. Let's keep it going.
Oh, rook a5 now. Momentito, por favor. Sorry. Is this completely clear? So knight b6, queen takes c4, rook takes c4, rook c7. You're happy.
Well, start with
A4
knight b6, d5. Yeah, start with that.
Whoa. I'm a material creature of material habits here. Rook b5 threatens bishop b4. Oh dear. Jennifer, I need a lifeboat. Could you please provide?
And d4 is threatening it.
A lifesaver. No.
We have rook c8 and queen c4 on the board.
Rook c8,
We're
queen
here.
c4. So
Black is ahead of tempo. White wishes he was castled so he could bring his rook into the game.
Sure.
Right now, White is playing down a rook while all of Black's pieces are waiting to pounce. This is objectively a
Much
superior
superior.
situation for White because he's defending a c-pawn that he thought he was using as a battering ram, which has now become a target. This just principally, you just need to look at it from a principle standpoint. Black has everything. Black has the a-pawn down the board that he can always use to push, create more levers. He's got the passed d-pawn in the middle of the board. It might be pushing anytime soon. He's ahead in development. White's king is stuck in the middle of the board. White wishes not only would he wish he was castled, he wishes that a rook sitting on d1 already. And even then he might not be better. Well, if he could play knight d5 cleanly, then he'd be happy. That would be a different argument, guys. But like this, down essentially 2 tempi, as far as I'm concerned, out of the ope, This is clearly black in the driver's seat. Black has everything you'd want with a position.
Sorry, Maurice, question. After we have this position on the board, after Queen E6, what does the engine suggest that Fabi
But we don't have that position.
play?
Bishop D8 was Magnus's choice instead.
Oh, Bishop D8. Boy, that's
It's a relief.
That's nasty because he's got two ideas. He's got Knight E7, which we always know is a good idea to bring that knight on G6 into play. And he's got ideas of Bishop A5, too.
Just resting control over the D5 square. So,
How does the
take
engine
us
like
through
this
that.
one?
This is good for white, it turns out. Knight D5,
Okay.
just daring him to...
centralize and check. We're not worried about because King E2.
Right. And then the rook
Right.
gets in the game.
And
Well,
what
if
about
I-
starting with Queen F3?
Queen F3.
Castles illegal? I know you're
I
worried
know, I
about
was like,
some sacrifice on H4,
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm-
castles and there's no sacrifice because your queen's sitting on
Yeah,
C4.
your queen's doing some
Unless
good
you're going to
job.
do like a bishop sack, then a
Well, I
rook
guess we could start with
there's knight
pawn.
E7.
We could start with pawn to E4 and then try to sack something.
You want to...
Or knight E5, yeah.
That's taking some time, though, Jen. Just a second. I can maybe cover the third rank, or do I have time to cover the third
Well,
rank?
wouldn't
I
knight
wanna-
takes H4 just be a draw? Yeah, that's my thought, because that's just a straight up mate threat.
Right,
Knight
and
takes
I
H4,
have...
which would force G takes H4, and then
I have
I've
knight
got
Knight D5
Check.
on the board, found
By
by
the
Fabi.
way,
That's
knight D5.
that's
hey,
a boss
game
move.
shifting. Draw, you want to talk draw? White will take a draw. Oh, I won't mind. And he found the move. Bishop D8, not the most accurate move by Magnus, and Fabiano now on the defensive, but finding good defensive moves. This is the nature of rapid chess. They don't have time to find all the accurate knockout punches.
Right.
And Magnus's move, this positionally inclined bishop to D8, trying to swing his bishop into the game and get his knight to E7. He probably thought, guys, he won't move his knight because I have this check. I got everything going. And now he might be looking and going, wait.
That's
What?
a challenge.
Because now the C-pawn is defended twice.
Yeah.
The C-pawn, there's a rook behind it now.
That
So
worked
you
out
want to win
well.
my queen, you know, I'm going to play two rooks for the queen, then I'm okay. So this is a big shift. This represents a fundamental shift in the position that he's able to execute knight D5. Now he just wants to castle and put a rook on D1, and white will be smiling.
Well, here's the question. I mean, there's so many challenges. I thought Queen E6 was a much more serious challenge than Bishop D8. I didn't see an adequate move. But what about E5, E4 after Knight D5? I mean, the Bishop D8 idea of Knight E7, that's an easy one to understand. But remember from Game 12, once again, how oftentimes we were afraid of this move, Jennifer.
Because of E4 and knight E5.
Precisely,
Yes,
and the
absolutely.
knight is ready to, jump. Once he gets to E5, it's eyeballing some pretty tender squares.
Right. So if I were to castle, you would just play knight E5 and
Whoa! You told me that there was a sacrifice on H4. I got at least a perp.
for a perp, and maybe
At least,
but
maybe
maybe you have
more.
something with a.
I'm not sure you can castle actually.
No,
after
castling
E4.
looks very dangerous. I probably want to stop knight E5 also. So how about just bishop to D4 to prevent knight E5?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I'll have to take it if you play knight E5.
That's not
Okay.
a just, though.
But
E4
no.
played on the board, guys, so maybe we'll get this.
Ooh, this looks
That looks
super
dangerous.
double edged. Now,
So what if
after
I do Queen F3 now? I'm threatening bishop A5, right? Or wait, can I play bishop A5 check now because King E2? There's Queen F3.
Yeah, exactly. That's
You
the
can
problem
do
with bishop
a
D4.
lot of things, frankly.
Well,
I'm afraid of Queen F3 in any case.
Immediately.
Immediately, because I don't want to castle and walk into the ramifications of a sacrifice on H4.
But won't that probably just be a draw? I mean, knight H4. I doubt I'll have more.
I
Oh,
think-
you want to take with the bishop?
No,
better watch
I
out.
think I'm going to have to play Bishop F4. I don't want to deal with Queen F3. I really don't want to deal with Queen F3. I'm thinking if you give me a check,
Yes.
I can walk over to
F1.
G2. Pardon me, F1 to G2. Okay,
What
this
about
is.
your knight? Is your knight a problem on D5?
Don't tell me you're going to play Rook A5. That's
just-
just
I'm
not
just-
fair.
just tossing it in
Rook
there.
A5.
That's just not fair. You're not a nice person.
Well, I mean, your knight is a problem. I want to actually take your bishop.
And rook, the brutal part of this move is rook,
Oh, rook C5 's a
rook
threat.
C5, exactly. So I can't play rook D1 because there's rook C5.
Ruh-roh.
A fair-weathered friend you turned out to be. I mean, you were supposed to be helping me, and then now you joined
Hey,
Queen
I don't
Maurice.
know. I'm not feeling
What's
Bishop
going on?
F4. Yeah,
You're not feeling. I'm not feeling it. What am I supposed to do after E4? I need help.
Well,
Maurice,
I was saying Bishop D4.
Bail me out here.
We were saying Bishop D4, and you were saying Queen F3, and I say let's just castle and see what happens.
Really?
Well, I mean, I don't know what
cow.
else to do. I can't leave my king on E1.
No, you can't.
And because my thought was if you play knight H4, it's a forced draw. But I mean, with just the bishop and the queen, and no way to get your rooks in, it seems like that is what it is.
All right, Ceci's giving Bishop D4
Yeah.
as the right move here. Bishop to D4.
Okay.
And then if Rook A5, Knight to E3, and if Queen F3 castles, let the pawn get captured, and just you can have the pawn.
Rook A5,
which I find
Knight
impossible
E3,
to
Queen
analyze.
F3, castles.
Yeah, and then Bishop H4.
And Ceci say, go ahead and play the position.
Then Rook C3. I don't want to do like what is he? Ceci can keep her variation. Like, what are you mad?
Somebody read me a bedtime story here.
Do that. Are
This
you
is not
crazy? Like this
is
looks
not happiness.
horrible.
This is not happiness.
I mean, giving black still only like a 0.7 edge, even though a pawn up.
Okay, I get Rook A5, but I'm really frightened of Queen F3. What was I supposed to do after Bishop?
Are you going to
E4,
side with
Queen
your
F3?
knight on H4? Is that your point?
But yeah,
Like,
we
if I
keep
play-
castling. I
I can play
castling
castle.
here.
If you play Bishop H4, Rook C3 is coming.
And Knight H4?
Well, knight H4 isn't that just a draw?
I'm not
Pawn
sure.
takes H4.
Oh,
Okay,
take
let's
it.
try
Let's
it.
look at it. Take it on H4.
I was
don't
just-
have
You
anything
get your
more.
first check. You get your second check.
I was just
Okay, where's the win? Your rooks are not coming in the game, so that's important.
that was my concern.
Your
That's-
bishop's not lining up, so all you got is a queen.
Okay, so I've got ideas.
Rook A5. Okay.
This is Jennifer's rover. Rook up and over.
I
you're
have
not-
Rook C3.
But you're not attacking D5.
I have
now,
Rook C3.
right?
I have Rook C3. I should
Oh,
have
that's
Rook
it.
C3.
Oh my gosh.
No?
What's going on?
I want to play
Shaq?
Rook G3.
Oh, you're going after G7 and I was going after
You're
the
going after my
material.
guy, and you're lucky Rook G7 check.
And then there's
doesn't-
this King F8, huh?
Okay, but now I don't have to trade queens. Are you comfortable? Queen C3 here? Oh, you have an E4 check. Excuse me.
I've got
Your
rook
E4 is
takes-
interrupting a lot. Okay, so
Uh-oh.
Row,
now-
row.
That
how many pawns do you have? You have one extra. That's
Yeah,
a
sorry.
problem.
I'm
we
Okay,
have got,
something-
guys, we have to move.
Oh,
C7.
no.
Bishop
Oh,
takes
no.
C7. Knight takes C7 on the board.
This
What?
is
And
not
now-
good.
And now Knight to E5 played by Magnus Carlsen.
Magnus sacked a piece.
Sacked a piece.
Yes, but his attack is blistering.
Oh, no. Knight
C7.
D3 check
His
is
attack
coming
is
in.
blistering right now.
Bishop takes C7. Knight takes C7.
And then an immediate Knight E5 dropped on the board. White is at the moment up a piece, but there's Knight D3 on the board. The rook on A8 is
queen is
hanging.
hanging.
It's total madness.
It's not that mad. You
this
got
is
a
good
pin
for-
knight and a rook on C1
is-
hanging,
this
and
is
the king
good.
about to be ripped apart by sitting on the E1 square.
This
This
is
is
good for
over.
black.
This is crushing.
So what happens if we play Queen D5, hitting that rook on A8?
Okay, so first of all, we've got a Hakasito.
So you play check, okay. So I better move my king up, King D2 to stop Queen F3
Because
check.
King E2 would walk into Queen F3, right?
Yes,
That's pretty
exactly. So
clear.
King D2.
Okay.
You can't have both rooks. and now if you can't play Knight C1 because the queen is hanging.
Correct.
So I stand by my theory that this is pretty crazy and pretty hard to calculate quickly.
Just a second. So if I go Queen F3,
So Queen F3.
then the rook is hanging, right?
Exactly. The rook
and
is
you
hanging.
could take it. Okay, that makes sense.
So this must be what Fabi is furiously calculating when he went in for this line. We know he's one of the best calculators in the world.
And Queen D5 looks box.
Right.
By the way. Okay, so now I've got to come up with a better.
So Knight D3 check actually doesn't look like
Rook
that
takes,
great, right?
Yeah. Now Rook takes C8.
I've
Rook
got
takes C7.
I've got Queen A8.
Intermezzo with
Yeah.
a check. That's very important. So Rook takes C7. You can't play Rook takes C7 because I've got check, and oops, there goes your queen.
Uh-oh.
But you could capture my rook, and that's actually winning for you.
That's winning for white.
Yes.
Yes.
So Queen D5.
So Queen D5, and what does Maggie have in mind here? As it looks like Knight D3 doesn't lead to anything. Rook C7 actually loses.
How about moving rook?
Not an actual killer.
Oh, so just move the rook. Just
Well,
move the
you're
rook.
threatening check and check. Well, pardon me. You're threatening Knight D3 check,
And if I castle, you have rook takes c7
Rook
and knight
c7
f3
is the
check.
threat. The threat is rook c7.
So I can't just castle.
Correct.
Because then you're just winning your piece back.
That was so. If castles, rook takes c7. Now, last time you had queen takes a8 check, and you were winning. This time, I've got the discovered, and your queen's not protected.
So instead, if I just play some other move here, because
queen
d6.
d6.
Queen takes d6
queen
or
d6.
something.
Queen takes d6.
You're down a pawn.
Okay.
You're down a pawn, but at least you're not mated.
Okay.
No. Back that up. We're not doing
we're
it now.
saying castle.
Castles first. Get your king.
After rook b8, castle.
Out of there.
Oh, sorry. Rook b8. Yeah, I apologize. Rook b8 castles.
And then we're saying after rook c7, just take the pawn on d6.
Don't even fall for this knight f3 check. Wow.
And now what's the pawn count? It's even, but
It's
the pawn
balanced.
on b2, but the pawn on b2 is hanging.
But
so we can play. Oh, we can't. Rook c1. There's queen takes b8 check, but then we have rook c8.
Right.
So how's that though?
Well, I didn't know if I should take Jen or play this. I didn't know because I know what you're saying. I'm thinking I want the 4 rooks on the board because my king. I mean, if I could just start.
But can we look at the forcing line real quick? Just
sure.
Because it's all coming with checks. Rook takes c1.
Okay.
Queen takes b8 check.
So
rook c8 check to your queen, right?
Check to my queen, right? On guard, as they used to say in the old days.
And then I'm just wondering, just the threats of queen h3 and knight f3. Is this just a forcing win? Where do you put your queen? You have to.
Exactly. Where should I put my queen? Maybe here. So. If you try to drop in on me,
you can take on e4. But then don't I have knight g4?
And then I have to go.
Oh, you have queen g4.
I have the full defensive.
Yeah. So you're good. You're good then.
I don't know about good.
You're not resigning.
I'm not resigning. Maurice.
Oh boy, we have a move. It looks like we have a move coming.
Give us an update. What does the supercomputer?
Knight d5 played by Fabiano Caruana.
What?
With the idea that after rook takes c4, there's knight e7 check. What happens here?
But this is terrible.
Queen f3?
He's just so dead.
This doesn't look good.
Why
Knight d5 is a blunder, I think.
Why?
Queen f3.
Because of just queen e6 or something?
No, queen f3. You hit the rook,
You're hitting
you hit
everything.
the queen.
But then there's knight e7 check.
King moves. Your queen is attacked
everything's
No, but look,
everything's
look, but what do you do if you just move the king?
I beg you mean like king h7?
Yeah.
Oops.
What?
There are issues, Jen.
Everything's in taken. The problem is c8 is
and it's been played.
King h7.
It's been played.
King
h7 is on the board. Everything is wrong here. This is a fantastic game by Magnus. Just simply amazing, and he's rolling him right now. There's nothing here for White. White is dead. This activity by Magnus is overwhelming. Yeah, this is not good.
It's a great piece sacrifice. It's just a great piece sacrifice.
C7 was just a terrible move. C7 was not the right move. Remember, we had that position.
Yeah.
You had to play bishop d4 and stop the knight from getting to e5.
But there was some ugliness.
There was some ugliness there, but it wasn't as bad. It wasn't nearly as bad. I didn't want to play that position, but I definitely don't want to play this position. No, he played c7, hoping he was doing something. Magnus found fantastic attacking move after fantastic attacking move. Now you see why he is the #1 rapid player on the planet. It was so natural for him, and that the equivalency is just not even there. This is a blowout match right now. See, it is black. Magnus showing why he wanted to go to this at all costs, because he was so far superior to Fabi in this form of play.
One of the things that really stands out, not just about this tiebreaker, but about Magnus overall, is that his play is incredibly consistent. He plays really great classical chess at a very high level, but it's not like the quality of his moves diminishes appreciably in rapid.
That's what Gary said. That's right.
Really great, high quality rapid, and his blitz isn't bad either. Some of his blitz games look like great classical games.
Right. That's exactly what Gary Kasparov said. The average quality of Magnus's moves doesn't matter to the format that much, and
the time control. He still plays consistently great.
Obviously, I think that in this game 12, Magnus, when he took that draw, he must have really had a much higher prognosis of his chances in the rapid than average.
Well,
Because some people were saying like 3-1. He must have thought it was even higher.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he must have thought.
Yeah.
Which is
But he would
the
never
only
say,
way to justify his draw offer.
He would never say
Like,
that that's kind of rude, right?
No, it would be rude. But
Although he's known to say rude things, yet not as much to Fabi, more to journalists.
No, I love his breathtaking honesty. But yeah, if he felt like, look, I will destroy, and I mean destroy, anybody on this planet in a rapid and blitz tiebreaker, they have no chance against me, then it makes sense.
Well, yeah, there was somebody who did the math, actually. There was somebody who did the math.
Jeff
somebody who works for PokerStars, actually, Bard Dahl. I saw him write the math, and he was saying that if Magnus thinks he's 85% chance to win the tiebreak, it could make sense. Brilliant. It could make sense to offer a draw because there's always that like few percent chance of actually losing.
A rook, yeah.
And actually, the computers played that position.
They did,
like a 25 game match, and it was 20 draws, 4 wins for black, and 1 win for white. So it's not that actually kind of aligns with that math.
Wow.
But then you really have to think he's like 85-90% chance to win the tiebreak. Then the draw makes sense. But insane that now that you see those first 2 games, wow, Magnus just played absolutely sizzling.
Well, first of all,
Maurice,
again,
jump in.
Magnus played like a boss this game. This is the kind of position. Again, it was 3 results, kind of crazy. And unless White, like I was saying, could control the action, you don't get happy in this position. And now it's like you're crying for this position.
Very crying.
This is not the kind of position where you want to give Black counterplay and a knockout punch in game 2, which it looks like has happened. The odds will be way stacked against Fabi to somehow make this into any kind of match. But the thing was that game 1, that broke his heart. That game 1 broke his heart. That rook and pawn ending that should have been drawn. When you don't draw something you're supposed to, when you know you should have drawn it.
And he resigned.
And the worst result possible. And now he has resigned.
Yes,
a brilliant, absolutely beautiful, brilliant game. We remember that Karyakin game that Magnus sacrifices queen for mate in game 4 of the match. This one is that game for Magnus. This game, winning in this kind of style in a rapid game, is just simply just dazzling.
Well, I really I like the first game. Rook D1 and Rook E7. Those moves.
The first game was a draw.
I just loved Magnus's. I loved a couple moves by Magnus in that game.
I think
it was really impressive.
I think history is not going to go on your side. When they take the game from this match, it's going to be the representative game of this match. It's not going to be the first game. It's going to be this game.
Well, this one's more spectacular for sure.
Maurice, could I take? It seems to me, I mean, with perfect hindsight, that Fabiano's only chance in this game was that moment when he could have played the move F2, F3. And if you don't mind, please take us through.
You mean a chance to get an advantage?
Correct. That after Bishop G4, this
was just a position. I mean, it was better for White. White controlled the space.
But if you could just show us.
There was a variation that went something like Bishop here, Queen C2, castles.
So it was back to castling long.
Yeah, it was thought that this was a fine way for White to play. White had control of the space on the board, had no worries about any breakthroughs, like B5 wasn't going to bother him.
Because the knight's on C3.
The knight's already on C3, not over here on F2 as in game 12.
And G4
was a straightforward, and then you get your thing going as well. So it was just a chess position to play.
So F3 was the moment, and then thereafter...
After that, when he allowed Bishop E2, he played. Rook C1, allowed this. Queen F5, just don't play C5. Just play on this side with Knight B5. Castles is a normal move.
Right.
Castles is no problem. He saw the king in the middle of the board and forgot that his king was in the middle of the board, and he decided that C5 was the right moment. This was a bad move. This is throw away everything. He should have gone for castles. Instead, once this happened, Magnus got his chance at castles, and then he was on his back foot because his pawn was hanging now.
Right.
He had to bail out with C takes D6. That was necessary, and play that position out. But instead, he played C6 and upped the ante. This was really upping the ante because now you've got a target on C6, and you still had not castled as yet.
Right.
And this was disaster as soon as Magnus started hitting at these guys. Bishop D8, Knight D5. This E4 move also came with effect. Bishop D4 is the only chance to slow the guy down, but not C7. And Magnus just said whack, whack, and boom. And this Knight D5, King H7.
And why didn't he try Queen D5? I mean,
Queen D5 was his only chance.
Yeah, I feel like that was his original intention, no doubt.
I'm sure.
And then he saw that.
Then he showed him maybe Rook B8.
Rook B8 was the best. Rook B8 was the only move to keep an edge here, by the way. Rook B8, castles, Rook takes, Queen takes. In this position, definitely not terrible, dying now. Chance to survive. Okay. Yes, he could have done that.
We started to look at this, and it wasn't the first couple tries to just like win by force.
Yeah, Rook takes. Rook takes, as you mentioned. Rook takes. Rook back to C8. This position, White has some things to solve. White is definitely, by the way,
on the back
foot and has to defend this position.
But here it is, 2 points for the reigning world champion, Magnus Carlsen. Just a draw will clinch him the retention of his title here at the World Chess Championship. That means that Fabi has to win 2 games in a row to tie up the match, Yaz. And then after that, he would have to win in the Blitz. But we can't call it yet, Yaz. Magnus has not yet retained his title. He does have to get on the board in the next 2 games.
I mean, it's a Hail Mary,
to snag it.
You know, but it's 5%, let's put it that way, but there is still that outside check. It's all about, well, he's got to win, does Fabi, with the black pieces.
And that's the first order, and we will take a quick break as we see if Fabiano can make the most miraculous comeback of all time and go on to split the match with 2 straight victories. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
A moment comes in chess when you need to test yourself at a different level. Chess 24 Premium offers the tools that you need to reach your maximum potential. From hundreds of interactive video lessons to becoming part of the Chess 24 community. You can analyze with friends or coach your students live. You get 24/7 coverage of chess news and events, access to premium analysis and commentary, and the chance to interact with grandmasters and other top players and coaches. Get advice from the best and even challenge them to a battle. Be the best chess player you can be. It's time to level up your game with Chess 24 Premium membership.
St. Louis University is celebrating its 200th anniversary. Offering world-class education in the heart of St. Louis, SLU attracts students and professors from around the globe. In 2015, SLU partnered with the St. Louis Chess Club to start a top-tiered collegiate chess team. On the very first year of the team's inception, SLU obtained second best university at the Pan American Intercollegiate Chess Championships. Higher purpose, greater good. St. Louis University.
You may have heard about St. Louis's world-class museums. Art, history, science, even magic. But you may not know we have an entire museum dedicated to play, with a 10-story slide and a Ferris wheel on top. Don't let all this family fun slide by you. Whose kids it is? St. Lou is always exploring. Anybody?
and welcome back to a World Championship edition where we are watching Fabiano Caruana fight for his life against Magnus Carlsen, the reigning world champion, and right now the heavy favorite to retain that title as he is up to a 2-0 start in the rapid match, and he only needs a draw in this game. He's playing with the white pieces. He started with e4, knowing that it's going to be tough for Fabi to play a Petrov, needing a win to get back in the match.
Exactly.
So naturally, Fabi played the Sicilian, but now here's Magnus playing a line that would give Fabi potentially less counterplay than playing
Maruxi bind with c4. So
exactly.
So the point is, Magnus leading 2-zip has opened c5, hoping for a Petrov, which would lead to an easy draw for Magnus. And Magnus played c2, c4 on move 3, an intriguing way of avoiding certain things and getting into a Maruxi bind position with the pawns on c4 and e4. Do we have further moves after this, Jen? I mean, a lot of games have gone knight f6, knight c3, and so on. We're up to date.
Indeed, we are up to date, and now Fabi obviously psychologically in a really tough situation here, yes, but having to just focus on the board. I'm sure he prepared for this situation. Like, if I'm in a must-win situation with black,
what am I going to do? I'm going to call out the the guards. Bishop c5. Okay, that's pretty off the beaten track, I want to say. Bishop c5. Okay, so obviously knight f6 and knight f6 and oh gosh, my auto update does not want to allow me to do it. Knight f6, knight c3 is the main line. Bishop c5, attacking this knight. I suppose bishop e3, queen b6 might be awkward for the first player. So dropping the knight back with a gain of tempo against the bishop looks pretty sound and safe.
The challenge that black has is playing a position that has some kind of durability, continuity. You can't just draw, you know that, and you can't play a position that's just equal that might lead to a kind of situation where you're just playing for a draw.
Exactly.
So
you got to be able to mix.
You got to play some funky moves. You're gonna have to do
exactly.
something a little bit strange. At least that's what he's thinking.
Sure.
Against a guy like Magnus, you can't just play trash.
Right.
You're going to get punished. So a really Herculean task ahead.
No question about it, Maurice. And especially with the black pieces against a very, very well-prepared Magnus Carlsen, who's just been playing boss chess in the first 2 games.
Oh, yeah. Phenomenal to be played.
Really good. But, okay,
and
knight
so fearless
b3 is
in
not...
game 2, playing, like, the most sharp line, despite, potentially 3 draws being the easier path to victory.
And all you need is 2.5, and he's just a half a point away from clinching. His title is, it's held it for 5 years. 2013 was when Magnus played his first World Championship.
The same year that we had the first Sinquefield Cup. That's why I always remember it. And Magnus did play knight to c2. He won the Sinquefield Cup. That was the last classical tournament that he won before he became the world chess champion.
Exactly.
And he was already, of course, the #1 player in the world.
I remember because he was here in St. Louis, and he signed the contract to play in Chennai against Vishy Anand here in St. Louis, and he posed for the cameras while signing the official agreement. Knight c2, intriguing. I thought knight b3 only because since the knight was retreating, it seemed attractive to my eyes to retreat with a gain of tempo against the bishop. I suppose Magnus is thinking that he would like to challenge bishops with bishop e3 and recapture with the knight on e3, so that when you got the Maruxi bind with the pawns on c4 and d5, so for example, we'll just put some moves on the board like knight f6. It's all about controlling this d5 square. If I make it impossible for black to play d5, then this pawn becomes backward, a target on the half-open d file. So knight f6, knight c3, if we see castles, this is very often a key way of playing for white, is again just to keep black from this freeing break d5. Maurice, how the heck is Fabi going to mix things up here?
There is a little tricky move here, queen to b6.
Queen
All
b6.
right.
Queen b6, if you can put that on your board.
Little
Queen b6
tickle.
It's just a little tickle, but it's not really real. The thing is, you can't move your bishop over c1 because f2 is hanging. Sorry, b2 is
Because of
hanging.
yeah, I
bishop
can't
e3
block
to
the
guard
threat.
f2 because b2 is hanging. So you've got to deal with that possibility, and then black will definitely snack on this pawn.
Exactly.
But black has to face this move, queen to d2.
Queen David 2, not
Yes,
Okay.
controlling the f2 square, and after knight f6,
knight c3.
knight c3, and now you can be very aggressive with knight g4.
Right? Again. Because, by the way, I feel like I need to be aggressive because knight a4 will fork my queen and bishop. At
Yes.
least this way.
The problem,
you
however, is he can also play very sharply against you. It turns out a move like f3
Uh-oh. Ruh-roh.
and trying to induce you to come into position with knight f1, knight f2, and then knight a4. And you got some questions. Do you win that rook in the corner after your queen drops back? He's going to take your bishop. You take the rook. And so let's say queen c7, for example. Knight takes c5.
That's a bishop.
Knight takes h1, and the rook
an
and
exchange.
the pawn on h2 is hanging. So you're going to get back out. But here, white seems like he has different moves. Queen f4 is one move. G3 is another to think about. There's just different moves to think you'd have to wonder about. Maybe queen f4 can be made by knight e5 or something. But that's a sharp way to play. You need to know it's okay when you walk in there with black. And it looks as though Fabi has played knight f6 instead, just gone for
queen b6.
straightforward development with knight f6, knight c3, and castles.
Bishop e3 played.
That was the point of knight c2, was to blunt the effect of this bishop on c5, win the dark squares, trade more pieces off if possible. I'm not sure if you want to play bishop e7 now. He's played b6 to get at least something for the bishop, get a pawn on c5 and control the d4 square is the purpose of this move. So black will go for dark square control in this position.
I'm really proud of Fabiano in this game because, he's playing the Sicilian. This must be one of the hardest things he's ever had to do as a chess player, to get whacked 2-0 in the first 2 games, come back as black. Like, just emotionally, I think the thing about Fabi is he's a rock. And yet, I just think every player, whether you're a Fabi fan or not, your heart has to kind of go out to him at this moment.
Yeah.
Like, what an ask,
Right. The challenge is extremely severe. It's like the Mount Everest.
And
right?
if he plays well in this game, I'm going to be pretty darn impressed because this is about the hardest. Like, I think Fabi's like one of the best mental games in the world, but this is the challenge, the pinnacle, the Mount Everest of mental game. Being able to play well in this spot.
Yeah, and especially when you're behind. And it's not just that. I mean, Magnus has just played 2 fantastic rapid chess games. I mean, we might have a little quibble about maybe 1 or 2 of his moves, but otherwise, Magnus has just been playing awesome.
And Garry Kasparov did tweet about that. He said that it's absolutely incredible. The difference between Magnus's moves in his classical and rapid games is so small that it's just ridiculous. It's almost like he's playing chess as well. The margin of error is so small compared to other players.
Less time on his claw.
And that's funny because Garry was so critical about the draw offer. But it seems like he's dialing back again. But that's the thing. They're 2 such different world champions. And this is Magnus going for his own, going after Garry for GOAT status.
Right.
I'm not saying he's doing it in this match, but lifetime, he's the guy who has a chance.
Absolutely. I mean, he's #1 in the world. He's been #1 in the world for 7, 8 years already. And he's been world champion since 2013.
Well, also, let's note,
Yes.
I think Nakamura said it, that the best player in the world should be the best at all time controls. And there are a lot of people who criticize this time control, who say, we don't want to see rapid chess, we don't want to see blitz, classical chess should be decided by classical means. Are you trying to decide who the world's best player is, the world champion, or are you just trying to decide who the classical world champion is? Many people say, we want to decide who the classical world champion is because we do have World Rapid and the World Blitz, so why not decide who the world classical champion is? Well, this kind of format also shows that you can decide all of it in one go. He may not be the dominant classical player that he was in the past, But overall, he's got all the skills. If you're going to go into battle, who do you pick? Anytime control. You pick Magnus. You want to go into classical battle, there's nobody else you're going to pick ahead of him. You might find his equal, you might say Fabi's his equal right now in classical chess, but that's all you're going to get. You're not going to say Fabi's just better than him. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Now, so he may not, you're still going to pick him if you're going to go to battle that way. Okay, let's do some rapid. Who are you going to pick? You know who you're going to pick. You're going to pick Magnus. Let's do some blitz. Who are you going to pick? You're going to pick Magnus. So overall, he's showing that his overall package of his game, he may not be the dominant force he was in classical, but overall, this guy's the best player in the world. And he's showing it in this competition. He showed it time and time again.
And in terms of the universal rating system, which incorporates all three disciplines of classical, rapid, and blitz, how dominant is Magnus? I mean, I think he's number one, but the question is number two that far behind him, Jennifer?
Well, the universal rating system, as I recall, Nakamura is number two by about 60 points.
60.
2859 for Maggie, 2800 even for Hikaru, and
wow.
And right next is MVL, and
right.
and by the way, Fabi just behind in that system as well.
The universal rating system number 4.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
So obviously he's had great classical results since the inception of the system. So
right.
That's a big reason for why that is.
Exactly.
But in this position, yes.
Yeah, we've just seen the moves. Well, let's just go back a few moves.
Suppose this wasn't a must-win situation for Black. I would say Black is pretty satisfied with the outcome of the opening. What would you say?
I would prefer White because, again, I'm a big fan of the classical Maruxi bind pawn center. I don't mind playing the hedgehog position as Black with the bishop on e7. In other words, the space disadvantage. But then I don't want the piece set up with the bishop on c5 and the knight on c6.
So you're just saying there's nothing to do for Black? It's hard to come up with plans?
Yeah, that's for sure. But also what often happens is that in these positions you end up playing rook c8 and knight e5. And then there's just this massive swap. It's almost like the board gets hoovered with pieces and pawns coming off. You end up capturing this pawn on e4. I capture a pawn either on d6 and a massive draw, or you end up just getting suffocated a little bit. Knight e5. Okay. Again, Fabi is trying to cause some trickery in the position. He's willing to meet the move f2, f4 with knight g6 when the pawn on f4 is under threat, as is the pawn on e4. So he's hoping to induce Magnus to play a move like f4. Magnus doesn't have to do that, by the way. He's got other moves that he can just keep the position nice.
Oh, you want to see
control.
this? F4 is auto blunder, actually.
Auto blunder?
Yeah.
Wow.
Take a look. F4, knight takes e4.
F4, knight takes e4. I didn't consider that.
Right, knight takes, bishop takes.
Knight takes, bishop takes.
And you thought you were hitting his knight on
I did.
e5, except after you take it, bishop takes on c2, and your queen is no longer defending the e3 bishop. And bishop c5 is met by queen takes c5 check to your king, followed by bishop takes rook. So f4 is actually straightforward blunder in the position.
Blunder alert.
So he's not going to play f4. He has actually played bishop takes on c5 immediately.
Yeah.
And pawn takes was played.
Bishop, okay, just a second. Let me refresh my board. F4, bishop c5, b takes c5. Okay, attacking the pawn on e4.
And now f4 is possible if he wants it.
F4, and yeah, that looks like a good, actually that looks pretty decent. F4, chasing the knight away.
Problem for Black, that d6 square as well. So he's got some dark square weaknesses he's going to have to tend to.
Well, e4, e5 is another tempo, and queen.
Okay, so knight g6, so that if queen d6, I can take your f4 pawn.
Right, I definitely.
Got to do that.
Yeah, and I was thinking something maybe along these lines. I don't know. I mean, probably I wouldn't have to play e5 right away, Jen. Probably I'd play something like queen e3, just maintaining this kind of
it's all about
strength.
whether I can get d5 in this position, right?
Well, you're not supposed to be able to do that, right?
Because my queen is pinned, but I can...
you know, if you play...
I've got enough pieces on it, though, and my queen is protected by my knight on g6, right?
Correct. But like I say, there's going to be a massive
And white only needs draw,
a massive hoovering of pieces.
That's the problem with giving draw odds, is that like you might be starting to feel okay, I've equalized as black, but that's not going to do the trick.
That's
and
right.
that's why Magnus chose a solid opening.
Of course.
Like the Maroczy against the Sicilian. That's like the Sicilian is the most fighting opening in chess, but when white,
only if the guy wants to fight.
Yeah.
But if he could but white has lots of ways of shutting down the activity, including the Rossolimo, by the way. That's a way of shutting down an open Sicilian.
Well, he didn't allow it here, though, because he played the E6 Sicilian. That takes out the Rossolimo, at least.
But by the way, we should note that 2 years ago, I guess now it's 2.5 years ago, a little over, when Fabi had to play against Karyakin in the last round of the candidates, I believe it was in Moscow, that he played a Sicilian against Karyakin in a must-win situation
Rouser,
and lost badly. It's not that's not good memory when you're going to play a sharp position that's really not your skill set because you have to win.
Right.
So now we have this position on the board. We did see F4 and Queen E3, knight on G6, Queen E3, D6, now rook to D2. If you had this as Magnus in any classical game, you'd start saying this is a Magnus-type position. This is what he wants, a little weakness, and he's going to play against you. You're not thrilled with the black pieces. Notice he didn't play D5 in that position.
We'll go over to
But we have the position here, and it's just nothing to do for black. Black's going to have to sit and sit and sit, and the best thing he can do actually is sit a while and not do anything for a long time, I think.
Yeah.
And I hope that Magnus tries to make some kind of winning demonstration that backfires, because this is known to be just okay for black, not better. This is black. Right. As you mentioned, Jen, he could have played for D5 and maybe hope for equality, but that's what black would do, prove equality and walk out and say, yeah, you got nothing, but not in a game where he has to win.
Right.
Yeah, that's the difficulty here. Against, especially, we've all been talking about Magnus's ruthless pragmatism, and that, when Gary came on the show a few rounds ago, he was saying that, like, in a way, that's the risk aversion, right, and the understanding of risk and the aversion to it, and the trying to win in the least risky way possible. Magnus, if anyone is up to the task of doing that, it's Magnus, right? A lot of times you say, oh, it's bad to try to play for two results as white because then you're going to get yourself got, right?
Right.
But that's like a naive way of looking at it, not against the Magnus, who probably is really good at that kind of parlay.
Yeah, well, I always thought of Anatoly Karpov as having this fantastic style of controlling the action and giving himself the choices, and your options get limited and reduced and stuff. And this risk aversion kind of chess, it's not the swashbuckling appeal. It's not heroic, but it's extraordinarily effective. I mean, let's give the guy credit. He's #1 player in the world in classic rapids and blitz for 7 years.
But he had a lot of haters after that game 12, which begs the question: if he wins the match in this round, is he going to do the shush again?
Is he going to
remember the famous shush that did not work against Fabi in the Sinquefield Cup?
Well,
I don't think
haters or not. I mean, tell you something.
Maybe he
you
likes
win.
haters.
You win.
Well, he
you're the
likes
champ.
haters.
But
maybe.
I will say there are a lot of people who saw what he did and will still say, okay, you got that, but your clock's ticking. That's not going to last forever. And I think you're going to have young players who are right behind him on the rating scale. We could mention a few names who are going to think, okay, we see how Magnus handled that situation. He's already almost conceding ground in classical chess, and that's what we're going to try to get him. They're not going to try to get him here, but they're going to say, we'll go for that. But in the meantime, he will have won the war, and so he'll be very happy to keep his title over the next 2 years, proving that. Now, meantime, in this position, Fabi has to play a waiting game. You see, he just played the move 8-6. The beauty of black's position is that it's not easy to pierce, and white doesn't have just straightforward plans of making a draw on the board. So as long as that remains the case, black can sit there for a while. The truth is, white can also sit for a while. Black needs white to overplay his hand.
Right.
So black has no real plans. D5 was the only plan. D5 is the best plan, and only real plan to play for.
Right.
Especially with the dark square bishops off. There's some hedgehogs where that bishop could be on like c7, a queen on b8, some weird king h8 action, some wild stuff. But in this position with the bishops off, black is just saying my d6 pawn is my only real weakness. You can't go through it. You just can't. I'm going to guard that with everybody. And if that's my only real weakness that's easy for you to target, then if you can't do anything else, you can't triple on it, you can't quadruple on it, you can't do whatever, then I'm going to make a draw. So Magnus is going to get to a state where he's going to say, okay, my position's fine. Now let me see, king h1, king g1, king h1, king g1. What are you going to do, mister? And that's when Fabi's going to be in a problem, because he's going to have the perfect defensive position, but nowhere to go with it.
Right.
Really tough must-win situation. Rook d7, bishop f3.
He did play g3 as expected, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, g3 just protecting the pawn on f4. Rook d7, bishop f3. The bishop, the light square bishop is being, well, it doesn't have a great view. The pawn on c4 blocks it, as does the pawn on e4. Right now, from white's point of view, the only piece that really needs to be improved is this knight on c2.
Rook e8, queen f2.
Rook e8 with the idea of d5, so that the rook on e8
eyes that queen on e3.
So the queen dropped back to f2, did it?
Yeah, and
Yeah, makes sense, Jen? Yeah.
Now, just like you said, he's looking to improve that knight position by sticking it on the e3 square.
Which would be very, very nice and very favorable indeed. Again, it's, you know, it's funny. I think after you play the move knight e3 followed by queen g2, it's very harmonious control over the d5 square. I mean, every single white piece is there to prevent.
Are you saying good luck playing d5?
Yeah. I don't think you're getting in the move. The breakout move d6, d5 is going to be well and truly prevented when this knight gets to e3 and the queen gets to g2. But
What about a plan of
Yes.
of playing for this knight? And I know it takes a while.
which
This knight on g6
Yes.
to go over to c6 and get to and play for e5 yourself and knight d4. The idea
Right.
being that you're trying to make the bishop on f3 a bad piece,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
If you could just put a knight on that d4 square. I know it's long-winded.
Actually, I
but-
think it makes the most sense because there's just not too many active plans in the position. And from black's point of view, these double rooks really do tenderize this pawn. So if you could play knight c6 and, like you said, Maurice, e5 and put the knight on d4, it's a good way of frontally defending the pawn on d6.
My only concern is, of course, giving up the d5 square and the f5 square as well, because a knight on e3 is going to be well poised to meet that. But actually, a knight on e3, that's true. A knight on e3 has to deal with my knight going to d4, because the knight removes itself from the control of the d4 square.
Precisely.
So I'm ready to go there first, and then I can still play e5. Anything lands there, I can just chop off twice.
Right.
Then I'll have the superior knight on d4.
Right.
So that's.
No, knight e7 makes a
not
lot of
unreasonable.
sense.
It's on the board.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's on the board. Okay, so that's a slow but sure
Okay.
positional tickle. You know, that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing you want to have in White's brain. I am actually not sitting here. I have a plan.
I got a counter strike against
Yeah,
you.
that's important. That's
Right.
a little bit of hope. You know, if you're going to get hope, you got to take
Right.
whatever you can get. That's a little bit of hope. The knight possibly going to the d4 square is showing that black is playing for something.
Right. One of the big fears of playing these hedgehog-style positions, Jen, is that you're giving up a lot of space, and sometimes White just takes the bull by the horns and says, I'm going to go
I'll take
pawn
it,
storm.
yes.
Yeah, G4.
Please do it. We
Yeah.
got to give Fabi some kind of chance here.
Exactly. G4, H4, G5, and I'm just going to steamroll you off the board. Now, I'm not saying that
Now I'm
Magnus,
smiling. We got a game.
Yeah.
Is that
I'm
what
not-
Magnus wants? I don't think that. We're talking about risk averse.
Oh, that's pardon me. That's my. It's not an auto update. That was just analysis of the previous lines we were looking at. Okay, because the point is, if you don't play for G4 and G5 and G4, H4, Queen G3, Black does have, as Maurice is pointing out, a very clear idea of knight C6, E5, and dropping a knight on D4. and potentially earning an imbalance that might be favorable if black can get in all of those moves.
By the way, Magnus played a couple of quiet moves. He played H3.
H3, okay.
And after rook doubled on the D line, then
rook on E8 to D8.
Yeah, then queen to F. Wait, bishop to G2. Excuse me.
Bishop to G2. Okay.
Just a couple of nothing moves.
And the glimmer of hope here is increased by the fact that Fabi does have a bit of an edge in the clock, a few minutes.
What is the time on the clock?
13 to 17 minutes. So nothing to write home about, but you can imagine that if that trend continues, there will be...
It's a good sign. It's a good sign. This is a good sign.
There's still some tension.
You're right.
There's still some tension. Nothing to write home about, that's for sure.
Right.
But there's definitely still some tension in the situation. And again...
All right. Well, let's just continue for Fabi. The move knight c6. Is he worried about e5 and
be
queen
careful.
takes?
Interesting point.
Knight c6 is actually on the board.
There it is.
Knight c6 is on the board.
Well, I mean, just completing, having said A, let's say B and let's say C. He is looking at the opportunity to play e6, e5, followed by knight d4. If he gets in those two moves, he could create a dynamic position where I like his chances.
And I got to tell you, the engine thing's the best move right now for white. And I'm going to give you a few moves, but the best one is G4.
Well, I was kind of pining for that, when
Right,
the bishop was still on F3.
But let's be clear, it's a mindset. G4 is a mindset.
Right.
G4 says, I'm going to play for expansion and come get you.
Yes.
So that's a mindset, and that's not the kind of position we know Magnus wants to play.
If he was going to play G4, he wouldn't have played
He wouldn't have played
H3 and
H3
bishop
and gone for that.
G2. Right.
So there would be a statement. He knows he only has to make a draw, and then suddenly he's playing moves like G4 and exposing himself, which he didn't do even in the game where he was better with black.
Right.
In game 12, we're not expecting him to do right now to play such a move.
What's
But
an
if he doesn't
alternative?
play that move, the alternatives being given are rook C1,
Okay, that looks...
knight E1, bishop F1, bishop back to F3, bishop H1, king F1, king H1, king H2. None of those moves inspire. I mean, none of those moves make you go, ooh, what is he going to do? All of them are total groveling defensive
And here we
moves.
go. You've got G4
And
on
look,
the board.
G4 is on the board with queen A5 next. And we have a little bit of a brawl just broke out with this move. Queen
G4.
That's
right.
what we want. That's
Queen
only
A5.
Fabi's chance.
And by the way,
That's Fabi's only chance.
now the engine's giving knight A4 as best, the point being to be able to drive the knight off of F6 and then break through on C5. And this game just went super sharp. Super sharp. He played the most principal line, did Magnus, and
You gotta love it.
This is going to be good for black. It's actually good for white, according to the engines, right now. So if white can deliver a true knockout punch, a 3-0 smash would just be unbelievable. He's already up 2-0, but this game has gotten sharp. And did knight A4 get played yet? It has not yet been played, but it's being given as the best move, and it has been played.
And knight
it
A4
has been
on the
played.
board.
And now Magnus is in his element, going after black. Knight A4 on the board.
And he's looking to cut out the protection of the rook on D7 with the move G5 so that you could follow it up when knight takes C5. And did this move Queen A5 precipitate a tactic that's going to boomerang?
Well, he does have the move Queen C7. He can just back up.
He should,
Yeah.
and
guard
perhaps
everything.
he should back
And he
up.
probably
But then
should
what do you
back
do
up.
against like E5?
E5, what?
Well,
E5 he can
well,
take.
E5 he will probably
Yeah, okay.
trade.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then you're saying,
that's something that white will have to be very careful about.
yeah, knight
exposing
C5.
his
There's
position
always a
to
trade on
take.
D2. Yeah.
But it looks like he has to, and it's not a move he wants to do, but what alternative does he have? Because
Backing
all his
up with the
alternatives
queen.
are really terrible, in fact.
Right.
Even his best move is not that great. Queen C7, and he's worse. So it's not psychologically what he wants to do, but everything else is bad. I mean, this is now white exposing black's last couple of moves, and this Queen A5 move was not great, and now he's going to have to rush back to C7.
Explain why Bishop C8 is bad. I'm trying. First of all, I'm defending D7. I'm really trying to play E6, E5, knight D4.
Well, I mean, can't he play still play with G5 anyway? I mean, that's
G5.
G5. It is giving away that
take,
E5 square. Takes, knight. Got to back up.
We've got to back up, I guess. Yeah.
And now something like, well, your knight on H7 has to find a way to get all the way back in the game. Something like H4 and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I'm just trying to plan a knight on E5 for the time being, and
yeah,
I mean, I didn't like backing up. I don't like backing up with Bishop C8 either.
Yeah, exactly. Both of them are moves that back up, but G5 is coming in all cases.
Right.
Nice harmony here, but with white, with the queen on F2 and the knight on A4 and the doubled rooks.
Yeah, I was a little bit even more worried if that bishop had stayed on F3. Sometimes you play for G5, and the rook can come over to the G2 square. But okay.
But you know
it's
what?
already bad.
Listen,
You're down 2-zip. You got to make it.
But here's the deal.
Please.
Here's the deal. If Queen C7 is going to be met by G5,
okay, yeah.
Let's play that line out.
Queen
G5,
C7, G5. Take.
Knight H7.
Yep.
Now, your deal is you're going to put your knight on F8 with the idea of bringing it to G6 and maybe getting to E5 with that knight. That's one reality.
That might be a dream come true.
Another reality is you're threatening to also play E5, knight D4.
Right,
anyway.
exactly.
So that's another reality.
So
you're worse spatially, but you did induce white forward in a generalized position that's like everybody's still on the board except a pair of bishops and a couple of pawns.
Right.
Everybody's still on the board. This is far from clear how this proceeds. So Magnus has now launched his pawns forward in the most logical way, the most principled way if you're going to try to play for a win, and maybe, it's a good position. But at least it's complex. At least it's full of fight, and anybody could blunder in a rapid game. This is the kind of thing you hope for. Where again, it's the same thing as that game one, where you were black and you were worse, right? You're worse. You're down a pawn. You're black. You're down a pawn in a rook and pawn ending. But this is the kind of thing you would like to have. And if it was an over the board game, you draw with no problem. This is the same thing I believe black wants in a rapid game. You need to win. You're going to accept a worse position. Forget about that equal boring stuff. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get it. Get the worst position, but hope it's rich. Hope it's interesting. Hope your guy looks around and feels some doubt and plays some indecisive moves, and you get a break, and then suddenly it's like, oh my God, the game turned. This is what you hope for, because losing doesn't matter anyway. Losing, draw is the same thing. So you need something you're going to be worse, but you're not lost, and you're not struggling to find moves. If you're not struggling to find moves, you take it. And I think this is what Fabi wants. Will Magnus go for this? Will Fabi go for it? First of all, he has to legitimately play Queen C7, and he's going to have to do one of those rope-a-dope, come get me, George, come hit me. When I say George, I mean George Foreman.
George Foreman, yeah.
And Muhammad Ali, come punch. I need you to come hit me. I can't come get you. I need you to come get me in order for me to then have a chance. And that's the position Fabi's in. And he did play Queen C7 on the board. Now will Magnus play the committal G5? Because you can't take that move back when you play it. G5 might be a good move. I can't see him playing it right away. Now, by the way, he does have an alternative. Knight C3 is being given by the engine as an alternative, with the move Queen A5 being given as best. Knight A4, Queen C7, Knight C3, repeating all the way through.
Whoa, do we have that E5 on the board?
What a completely different move. Looking for equality as Magnus, a totally different alternative. But this looks like the engines are giving triple zeros.
He's trying to trade off all the pieces.
That was what I was afraid, that in a lot of these cases when you do get a move like E5, a lot of hoovering takes place.
Right. This was the first thing we looked at when I said E5 takes on E5, knight takes E5.
Right, precisely.
But then you pointed out that black has solved his problems, but of course solving the problems is not enough in this situation.
Right. He's trying to create problems.
Right. Rook takes D2, rook takes D2, and like as you said,
been played?
hoovering is commencing.
Right.
So
the cleaning lady comes on the stage and just
could be a cleaning man as well, yes.
Oh, sorry, you're absolutely right.
It is the world champion.
Absolutely right.
But after Bishop A8, he has kept his bishop on the board, and now we have a dynamic
Queen D2, Bishop A8
position.
We do have it.
Rook D2, Queen D2.
All four rooks trade. All four rooks came out. And now you said Bishop A8, did you, Maurice?
Yeah.
Getting out of the threat of knight takes B7. Got you. Okay. This is the situation.
Crazy. This position's still busy. It's not triple zeros after bishop a8. It would have been after e takes f4, but bishop a8 is his chance to try to keep pieces on and keep it rich. And it's not easy. I mean,
Magnus for white to just shut down
white just
everything.
shut every down.
Right.
He's close, and he's even better according to the engine. But this is not, and only slightly better, but this is not done. This is not just done.
If I play the devil's advocate, and I apologize to all concerned, grab a pawn.
You're greedy, man.
You're hungry. Yes.
I'm a pawn grubber. I mean, I'm a proud card-carrying member of Pawns United.
All right. So how do I get something here?
Well,
for black?
the problem is that this bishop on a8. You're right. You preserved it, but guess what? You're still the knight on c6 is still in a pin, and those are 3 connected passed pawns on the queen side.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, the engine says queen b2 here, which
queen b2,
which does not really breed that much confidence, as the move b4 is playable.
Also knight c7, but you like b4. Okay, that's fair enough.
Well, you're going to play for b5, and it's
push him, baby.
Yeah.
It's a push him, baby situation.
Yeah, this looks really good.
Well, I mean, sometimes the simple questions need to be asked and answered too. Okay, sorry, that's just my auto update.
Occam's razor, just take all the simplest solution.
Right.
But
and we do have, pardon me, after bishop a8, we do have takes. Right?
Yes.
Yes,
we
exactly. And so this
That's
is
how
where we
you're
were
predicting.
looking at queen takes e5.
Just knight takes a6, grab and go.
Just, asking the question, where's your big attack? Queen takes e5, knight takes a6.
Well, it is queen b2, and there's a long line that goes there, but it doesn't look like it's promising for black
queen
once
b2
again
at all.
Oh, but just because you're threatening the pawn, okay. But yeah, but
tell us the long line.
It's queen takes on
a2.
Okay.
No, sorry, queen check first. Check first.
Check on.
Yeah, just move the king to an exposed situation. Yeah, first you have to see this.
I can move my knight, I can block with a knight. Or then you want to block you. This is weird. Okay, so go ahead.
Let's just go with
tell
this
us
line.
The line, please.
King h2, queen takes on
a2.
a2, then b5.
Yeah, makes sense.
Queen takes on c4.
Whoa, queen takes on c4. Yeah. And now?
And now b takes c6.
B takes c6. Queen takes a6.
Queen check.
Akasito. Yeah, king h7.
And queen and knight b4.
Knight boy 4. I got to tell you, this feels like white has no worries here. Even though he might be a pawn down, white looks like he's doing well, Maurice.
Yeah, well, he's guaranteed that pawn that you can never do anything about. Your best bet is to just get the heck out of here.
Exactly.
After queen b5, queen takes,
c4.
whatever move you make, you're going to
start looking for
There is one hope.
Check.
So like queen b5,
okay.
Queen b5, queen a8, queen
Okay.
takes on b4.
Okay.
And your one little hope is that he plays c7 right now, but he's not going to play it.
Right. You'll place.
No, check and take the pawn on c7.
Correct.
So that's not going to happen. And you have no way of really dealing with the c6 pawn, so you're going to have to go for it.
Right. I like it in a perpetual check. Well, that's quite a long-winded variation, but it also has the feel of
And queen
best
takes
play.
c5 is on the board, but Magnus is yet to snap on a6.
Does he have an
Another reasonable move?
alternative?
Let's see.
I mean, knight d7.
Yeah, knight d7. I was wondering about that.
Okay, let's just have a quick glance at that one. Okay, so obviously I'm hitting the queen. I'm not sure I want to invite white's queen into maybe the same line as before, Jen, queen b2. You know, that pin's a little bit awkward, at least.
Right, and now I have a choice between knight takes f6 or knight b6.
Right. what
let's say knight takes f6.
What feels? I'm trying to keep the imbalance, right? I mean, again, circumstances force Fabi to go for a win, even though his
And what about
pieces
just
are
playing
being
like
pinned.
queen d7 here? Oh, you have I'm just trying to.
Same stories. Well, hold on.
You might have knight e5 or something.
I'm going to pick up this guy.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to hang around. No, the more I look at this, the more I would prefer to play knight takes a6, since I'm going to trade the pair of knights anyway.
You
might as well take a pawn for my efforts. Maurice, what does the engine reckon? The supercomputer, that is to say.
All good moves. Everything you do is fine, but knight a6 is actually the third best option. Knight d3 is also given as a strong move here, just to guard everything. Just
knight d3 stopping b2 and
any penetration. How do you win?
For a queenside majority of 3 versus 1.
And also the statement, how do you win? After I play knight d3 and something like queen e3, how do you win? What do you do with black?
So knight d3, if I go back to break the pin of the bishop by defending the bishop, you're saying queen e3.
Or queen f4 even, try to offer a trade, but something like that. Like, what are your moves as black that now make a statement that you're going to try to win this game? It's kind of sad because your only chance is that e-pawn right now is on e6. You have nothing on the queen side. You're going to have to somehow make that pawn into a hero.
Right.
And it's going to require a lot of removal of bodies out of your way in order to get that pawn anywhere. And there's nothing else in your position to write home about. So he could take on a6 and go for this forcing-ish line. Or he could just back up and say, okay, now I've returned the favor. Come beat me. I dare you to beat me in that position.
Knight d3.
So he's under full control as Magnus right now in this position. And his intuition is so good that he'll suspect which one it is to do to make sure he is not hit.
Right. So knight d3, queen e3, just taking a stand in the center.
Just one way to do it.
And knight takes a6 also.
But everything. I mean, literally every move, any knight move is all zeros, all the way down. Queen e3 is possible right now as well, is another move that Jen's giving, which looks sharp in my eyes. But
actually, that looks really decent, too.
He played the sharpest one, though. He did play knight to d7. It's on the board.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And queen b2 on the board as well. So we're there in this most sharp of the options. There'll be a knight trade, but at least Fabi can say my a-pawn is still on the board. There's only one pass pawn over there, not 2, if he had taken on a6.
Yeah, so he did
actually not 3 temporarily, but knight d7 is on the board, queen b2 is on the board.
Okay.
But it just seems that, the minors are going to get swept off the board somehow in some of these lines, right?
The cleaning man's in the room, yeah.
Well, not every one of them. You know what the problem is? The problem is, where are you going to win? You still need your e-pawn. I don't see any other place to win this game. You're not going to improve your pieces in some dramatic way. You need to make that pawn on e6 into the star. That's your only chance. There's nothing else. And it doesn't seem likely that you're going to make this pawn go down the board. Unless Magnus does something crazy, this pawn is not going anywhere.
Can I just force the issue with white too? Like, I'm really concerned all 3 minors off and it's just over. Even lines with perpetual.
So you really like the knight f6? Oh,
I'm not saying I like it.
Queen
d6
did play
queen d6.
Queen d6 is on the move.
Something like your effort.
I was taking and then playing queen d7, but this looks even better because there's the queen f8 idea.
Yeah, because you got queen f8. Followed by knight f6, followed by queen f7 check. So
that knight's got to go.
So this is what I'm saying. If we're just taking off all the pieces, knight takes d7, queen d7, queen c2, bishop takes c6. I mean, and there's got to be some perpetuals in the offing as well. You can't.
Well, the perpetuals aren't easy for white there. That's not a good way to do it.
Are we sure we want this for white?
No, we don't want to do this. Not like this.
Because Fabi gets to win a pawn.
How? Oh, you just get to win.
Yeah, be careful how you win that.
But then it's even, isn't it? Oh, it's not even pawns. I have queen e8 at the end, but then you're taking on b3.
Well, but hold on a second, just a second. Knight d7, queen d7.
Worth running queen c8 check and queen e8 check as well.
That's what I think is on white's agenda.
Because then at the end of the day, we're going to have this bishop e4 check.
Precisely.
So you can't even
the king will be on h7, and the bishop comes to e4, and it's over.
But
you have to check first.
Black can get out with checks, right?
So you probably have to play queen c1 check first, and then that way, when you take on c2, bishop e4 won't be legal.
Right. So I'll have walked into a pin on the second rank.
No. You take. I don't think you do it like that because now Queen E4 is legal.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Even
Right.
worse.
Good point.
So,
yeah.
So what you do is you leave the thing alone because you can check later.
Okay, so this is the current position. How do we figure?
Knight takes, queen takes C2.
Okay, at once.
Right.
And
now,
then I'm going to go
Queen's-
queen check.
Which way? Queen doesn't matter, right? Queen C8 check.
Okay, queen E8 check.
all right, king H7.
Take it.
And now I can check on C1.
Correct. And now all I'm playing for is a draw, right? So
Okay, so in this kind of way, I can play a queen D2 check,
I see. So you can play still for knight D4, right?
and then move my knight, and then hope we're still playing at least.
And
if
we're
G6
and you are still
at
playing.
5 even more aggressive.
Right,
we do
right,
have
right.
this having been played. Knight takes first step in this, but my problem though I saw something else was king H2 might have been
Instead of
the
king
best way to
F2,
play.
yeah.
King H2 in this position, and now queen F4. Wait, can I move my knight? No, I can't move my knight yet because of the.
Because of the queen E4 check, yeah. So you have to do it this way.
But now, if
And we
you
are
move-
seeing queen takes C2, queen takes A8 on the board. So
Okay.
he
So we're
Fabi
here.
has left the check in.
So how does he
in
keep
reserve.
the pieces on? Is what
Oops,
is what he
sorry.
needs to
I
do.
went a little bit fast.
So you were
this
trying-
is the current position.
Yeah.
No,
so
no, we're beyond this.
Queen C2, queen C8 check.
Okay.
Actually, it was queen E8 check for posterity.
Okay. Queen
It was
E8
queen
check?
E8 check,
All right.
yeah. Queen E8 check, king H7, and then queen takes A8, yeah.
Queen E8 check, king to H7, and queen takes A8 on the board.
And now queen to D1 check played.
Not queen C1 check, but queen to D1, anticipating, let's say
King H2 was played. That's what he
Queen.
did. So now he's figured out a way to guard everybody. He's going to play queen D6 check, and then he's going to move his knight.
Right.
And his queen guards the pawn, and his knight's out, and there's no trade.
The queen guards the pawn, the knight is safe,
Right.
and there's
right.
no trade of queen.
And that's what's happened, but
Queen
what does
D6
that
check,
mean?
king H1, all on the board.
And then after knight D4, but then
It was king H1 instead of king G1 in that
Okay,
line.
fair,
yes.
fair enough. King H1 is fair enough. I mean, but now I'm thinking that after knight D4,
Played.
I could play B4. You can't take the pawn on B4 because I've got that queen E4 check hitting the king and the knight, and well, he played queen E4
He
check.
played queen E4 check immediately.
Immediately. That's
And now
interesting.
F5 is possible.
Right.
Keeping a little bit of action alive, this move. It ain't
There's
much.
an imbalance. There's
But
an
there's an
imbalance.
imbalance on the board.
Yeah, gotta do
and
what
by the
you
way,
can do.
pawn takes will be answered by knight takes.
Yes, because the pawn takes would allow queen D5.
But not
right?
only that, yes, but the knight takes, you're threatening knight G3 at some point.
Not now, but
Not
yeah.
now, but you know, when the guy sleeps on it. But also important, you keep the pass E pawn. Right? That just remember that E pawn, even though it's not any factor yet, but enough. And this is on the board. F5 is on the board. G takes F5 is on the board. It's definitely still fine.
I love this though.
But-
Fabi
but this is sharper.
showing great spirit in this game, doing whatever he can to keep something juicy, knowing that his chances for winning the world championship are slipping away. But when you're there at the board, you got to try.
A little bit of
Absolutely.
hope, though. This is a little bit of hope. It ain't much, but it's a little bit of hope.
Well, I gotta tell
I mean,
you,
Black's
that's a
position is
pretty-
much better than it was.
When you go back to that situation when Magnus had the knight on A4 and queen was on C7 and there was a G5, I thought, Magnus was just shutting it down with G5.
And you thought it was going to be
E5 maybe gives a little bit something.
So this is something that it could actually backfire in a tighter match where you go for the draw, but now there's this famous principle that the queen and the knight work really well together as opposed to the queen and the bishop.
Because the queen and knight can switch colors. They can play on the dark squares and they can play on the light squares. When you've got a queen and bishop, well, you're playing on the same colors as your bishop. So
Right.
the queen and knight has generally been preferred. It's a little bit overrated, but
Right, we
here
talked about it in
it's
another
very
game.
hard to see the pawn on E6 being a hero. Maurice, what
But
Pawn
about-
takes was
that's why
played.
he take with the pawn
Pawn
instead,
takes on
thinking that I guess
E6.
after queen D5 he could play queen F6.
or maybe queen. Okay, well, I'm playing queen D5.
Queen
Okay.
A3 was played.
Queen E3, okay.
Whoa. Okay, I was going to play Queen D5 in order to be able to advance my pawn, but
That's
Queen
what I would
E3.
think too. Inducing, what happens on F4 is.
I'm not
Is
sure
there too many checks?
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I might play a move like A5 to just try to keep these pawns on the light squares as long as.
But what's your plan? Yeah,
I have no idea.
I don't know about this pawn takes on F5 seem like.
My plan might be to play G5 and King G6.
Whatever you do when you start pushing those pawns, you're going to have to pet. The one thing about the other position was your king seems a little bit more secure. This one with
the knight captures
with
on
the knight
F5.
capturing and also keeping the e-pawn as a little bit of potential. But this now you've shrunk the board a little bit, and also anytime you play F4, you're exposing yourself on those light squares.
Agreed.
So, I mean, he had to make a fine
F5.
judgment here.
Yeah.
Knight takes F5 felt more energetic.
Okay.
Felt more controlled and energetic at the same time.
I can't argue with that.
This one just feels a little bit more loose.
Okay, my knight on D4 is not that great. What if I put my knight on E3? How about knight C2 as a try? I'm just looking for an opportunity of maybe playing Queen D1 check and what can I?
Yeah, you know, the only thing I will say about this position, he put his knight on E6.
Knight E6.
And allowed B4. Here comes.
That's why I was thinking that maybe A5 would have been
what is knight E6 about? He must have seen this move before coming. Why did he play this move? Because I don't see where the knight plans to go from E6.
Maybe he was check on D1, and I'm not sure. I don't know. B4, you say,
no, seriously.
On the board?
On the board. I don't understand.
What do you got?
I'm just trying to comprehend this knight maneuver because
the
knight is. You always want to know what the circuit the knight is on, and right now the knight has found a weird circuit. Play a few moves with this knight, please. Show me where you're planning to go with it, because
so if you went knight E6.
Knight E6.
B4.
And Magnus took the opportunity to play the move B4 and say, well, I'm going to start pushing since you didn't stop me. I don't understand the move knight E6.
This makes no sense to bring the knight to E4. That would just step into a capture by the bishop.
And now he just played knight G5. Where is this knight? Now, is only, okay, he's thinking maybe he'll get an F4 and F3.
Yeah.
Okay, now we know what his plan was, is to try to get this pawn to F3, but
boy, you're just encouraging White to make a lot of moves that I think White wants to make.
That was not controlled chess.
Well, what about H4? What happens on that?
I think that's
even
a
the
very
most
strong
forcing
move.
line. There's because of F4, there's a bishop B4 check followed by Queen D3, isn't there?
Correct. Yeah. F4.
Kind of shutting everything down.
F4.
Charging ahead with C5 was Magnus, ignoring any of the any.
Well, C5 is definitely got my vote. Push him, baby. You know. Pawn goes, passers must be pushed.
Queen F6.
And now the engines are giving big edge for White. Huge edge. Those last few moves after taking with the pawn, then dropping the knight back, putting it on a strained circuit, trying to figure out some kind of plan. Queen F6 now on the board. And C6 is Magnus ignoring everything and allowing a knight. He just blitzed out knight E6. Whatever his knight was doing, it's now playing pure defense. So a bunch of wasted moves by Black.
Because the bishop's going to be a star now. We're going to get to play bishop D5. Oh, A4 was Magnus's choice, just trying to get the connected pass pawn.
And A4 on the board, and now the engines are giving completely winning position for White.
Well, those pawns are getting to B6 and C6.
5+. Those last few moves. Wow, by Fabi
dilly-dallying.
Well,
just showing
tall order. He had to win that position with Black.
No, sorry, he did not have to let this happen though. He was right there and could have played knight takes F5 and played, or played Yasser's move A5. Those were moves to control the position. Dropping his knight back to who knows where was not
very tall order for Fabiano Caruana, and instead it looks like he's going to go down for the third game in a row here.
Has he played knight C7?
He's played knight C7, but Queen F4 was the
Queen
response.
F4 attacking the knight.
Now
knight back to
that
E6.
whole saying about the knight and the queen looks pretty silly, as you have this stunning bishop holding the protected pass pawn.
You've got a stunning passer on C6 that's
and
awesome.
Now Queen D6 is crushing.
Knight E6 and Queen D6 will end the game.
I mean,
on it.
Queen D6, you don't even have moves.
Now you're tied in knots. Bishop D5 is coming.
No papet anywhere. No bailing out. This is going to be dominant.
The queen covers all the squares, guys. This is a dominant queen here.
Well, Magnus Carlsen showing that you don't play strong rapid against him, he will own you. And he is doing it here, showing why it is that he was willing to take all the outrage of the world by taking a draw in that position where he was definitely better as black and saying, look, my edge on this guy, whatever anybody wants to say, it's so huge. It's not just him being that good, but his edge on Fabi was so big in rapid chess. And Fabi's going to have to shore up that weakness if he's going to make a run at Magnus again. He's going to have to shore up his weakness in rapid and blitz because he cannot afford to have this kind of major disadvantage in this time control against his opponent. No way in the world he beats him if he's going to be doing this all day. And this position is total bust. This will be the most decisive victory in World Championship history in the tiebreak. By far.
A lot of people were complaining that there were so many draws in this match, but it turns out like we're going to have 3 decisive ones in the Rapids, which is pretty stunning. Not what I would have expected. I would have expected 1 decisive game and then maybe the other 3 draws. Yeah,
like the Gelf and Anand match, which had featured only 1 decisive games out of the 4, and Anand won 2.5, 1.5.
And Kramnik Topalov was 2-1.
Queen D6 on the board, guys, and we're expecting potential resignation here. I mean, what do you do as Fabi?
No, this is crushing. This is amazing.
He's played
chess.
Queen A1 check.
King.
His time pressure must also be horrific to be moving this fast because
I'm not sure, but I don't think he's on seconds.
Well, the moves he's made so far, the last few moves feel like time pressure moves as well, but it won't matter. King H2 played, and this is resigned.
Knight D4 has been played, indeed.
It looks like that's the only move. So after C7, Queen C3, Queen C5, I think you can resign with a clear conscience in that particular case.
C7 on the board, and Magnus will not give him a draw. I'll tell you that. Magnus is not accepting draw offers. I think he'll be declined comfortably and just let me win this game.
Yeah, I don't think Fabi can offer him.
This is the maximum you could win.
That's it. I don't think Fabi's offering him a draw here. Fabi's a classy gentleman. You know, he knows what happened. He got crushed in the rapid. There's no reason to offer a draw.
But you know, it's funny. You should say you use the term weakness. That Fabiano has a weakness against Magnus. Fabiano's a fabulous player. I mean, you know, he's. But
everyone,
he's allowed to have weaknesses.
I mean, but it's just that somehow this guy Magnus is just a class.
Yes.
You're saying the weakness would be less against like Levon or MVL.
No, yeah, exactly. Well, comparatively speaking, we're talking about number 1 and number 10.
Yeah.
So this is a big difference. This is too big a difference to want to go into rapid chess. We've seen Fabi not perform at the top on the Grand Chess Tour, guys. We've seen that in rapid and blitz time and time again.
We've got Queen C3,
this is not a mystery to us.
Played, by
Queen
the way.
C3, Queen C5.
That nice blocking move. That move is about to.
This we've seen before, and Magnus knows it. Nakamura knew it. Kasparov knew it. We knew it. The advantage is big and not strong for Fabi.
But Fabi didn't do anything wrong per se. What was he supposed to do? Decline the draw offer in Game 12 when he was worse?
No,
I mean, he couldn't have
done
that.
No, of course not.
So.
Nobody said he did anything wrong, guys. We're not criticizing him. We're just stating facts. We're not saying that the guy did anything wrong.
And he played the sharpest line in the last game, the Sveshnikov Sicilian, Open Sicilian.
Mm-hmm. So we can't back guess him now. We can't back guess him. He was playing. We're not back guessing at all.
He played a
great match. He showed classical chess. He's fantastic. We're not criticizing. We're just stating the reality. The reality is he's playing against the best guy in the world, and you better be strong in rapid too if you're going to challenge him. That's it. If you can't beat him in classical chess, you got to be strong in rapid. And if it was somebody like MVL, somebody like Karyakin, who by the way got beat.
Queen D2, there would just be. Can you?
Queen D2, you can just queen.
You can just queen
Shaq
because
doesn't do anything, but
because there's just.
Knight F3 check is King
There's just King
G3.
G3. You don't have to go back to H1 exactly.
And if you go Queen F4 check, I think I can just, now I'll just step back to H1.
But you could also play Queen D4 if you really wanted to in the very beginning and just make a queen.
There are multiple wins.
Oh my goodness,
there
I
are
didn't
multiple
even realize
wins.
that. You're
just
absolutely
play Queen
right.
takes D4. This is what I wanted to show, but apparently it's not even necessary.
No.
But
it's good enough. I mean, that's
because there's no perpetual bishop. After Queen F4 check. We're running away, I think. Yeah.
It's a long run. Perpetual. Well, Queen E5 check you'd start with, instead of...
Queen E5 check.
Oh, for sure. Much stronger. Apologies.
Okay, so maybe this isn't the smartest idea then. But Queen C5, Queen E3 on the board.
I'm sorry, Jen.
After Queen C5, Queen E3 was Fabi's reply.
Oh, okay. I'm replaying an analysis. Sorry. Just a second. I will be with you.
And Queens is on the board. He has Queen, two Queens on the board. And
well, Magnus ended his previous world championship with a queen sack, isn't that right, against Sergey?
Queen
and
H6,
so to add to that synchronicity, now he's ending it with two queens on the board. So
F4
the opposite.
and Queen to G4 after F4. So Queens, F4, and well, is your board frozen yet?
No, I Queen, yes.
Or I guess our position board is frozen.
F4, Queen G4 played.
This is not the position.
Queen F4 check.
He played F4, now Queen G4 on the board. And that signals a resignation, I would think, because there's no Queen G3.
And there it is. It looks like he has resigned. Magnus Carlsen retains his world championship title in an absolutely stunning performance in the Rapid.
Crushing.
Just every single game he won. The first game was the closest, where both men played spectacularly, but Fabi getting a tough game. The second game is sizzling Sicilian by Magnus Carlsen. Every single Sicilian we've had in this match, the Open Sicilian, has been breathtaking, but that one, finally some blood was spilled, and it was Fabi's, unfortunately. Yeah. And finally in this game, Fabi...
Well, having to play for a win with black, he
We've never seen that work, him playing a Sicilian, trying to win with black. That's just not the position he wants to be in. Awesome. Kudos to Magnus Carlsen, as he is still the world champion. He is the best player in the world. He did not show it in the classical portion. He is definitely being chased by a number of players in classical, but overall, he's the best. Best by test, and he had a 3-0 that will never be beaten in this system. You can't do better than 3-0 in a 4-game match, and that means he continues to be the world chess champion, a title that he won in 2013. Absolutely dominating performance after what was truly a fight, in a full-blooded fight where he could have also been broken, but he didn't. He bent, but he didn't break. And there he goes, 3-0, Magnus again the champ.
And his fourth world championship title. That's right.
Fourth time. Twice against Fischer, once against Sergey in 2016 in New York City.
And now against St. Louis's own Fabiano Caruana,
in
who
2018
put on such a tremendous performance. You know, that was just stunning by Magnus in the Rapid, but I got to say, still hashtag Team Fabi. I'm pretty proud of the incredible performance he put on here. It was on the edge of the seat for 3 weeks. And, you know, it was just really unfortunate in that final game that Fabi, instead of getting something with white like he had in game 8 and 10, it was the opposite, and he was actually under all the pressure.
Exactly. Well, it's really strange in hindsight. I mean, as we sat down 2 weeks ago and we were ready for game 1 of the World Chess Championship, we all said to ourselves, look, we think that this match is going to be a really, really, really close one. Our biggest fear is that they get to a tiebreak where, you know, we feel that Magnus has a significant advantage. We felt that that was Magnus's advantage, and boy, did he show it today. It was really an impressive victory by Magnus. Shout out to Magnus Carlsen and his team. Well done. Well done.
And life goes on for all of us, Yaz, even those of us fervently on Team Fabi. Well, we will get another chance to root on Team Fabi.
Okay.
As we have the Grand Chess Tour Finals, December 11th to 17th, featuring the top 4 players by Grand Chess Tour points. And that means that in the first round, we're going to see actually Fabi battle against Hikaru Nakamura, who had some fighting words to say about the World Championship Challenger. That said, I'm not very superstitious, Yaz, but I noticed that when Hikaru makes a prediction in this match, he's almost always wrong.
Yeah.
So I was very excited to see that that Hikaru said that Magnus was going to win easily. But then a couple nights ago, Hikaru was like, you know, actually, I got to say, Fabi's playing the best chess of this match. So I was like, uh-oh. Uh-oh. If you got Nakamura saying that. Uh-oh. But seriously, Nakamura did change his tune, and lots of respect for Fabi. But they're going to get to play in London as we see MVL and Ivana Ronyan also play in the semifinals.
And the two will be, and there's $300,000 in prizes, and every year, I'm still in shock.
And Maurice is going to be calling that, we're going to be here in studio calling that. Maurice is going to be in London. And Fabi, I think, is just sticking around in London.
I think he goes with Rustam Kazimjanov back to Germany just to chill for the week or so between the closing ceremony today in London and start of the London Classic. Sorry, Maurice, you were about to say.
So Fabi's journey begins yet again, right? It's going to be very hard. He's got a 2-year climb to try to get back to this situation. It's not often that you return after having lost the opportunity, have you lost a match. We talked about that. Smyslov, when he tied Botvinnik in their match, that first match, he came back to defeat Botvinnik. He was the challenger yet again to defeat Botvinnik, and that was an opportunity for him. Anand, it took him 12 years. Korchnoi was able to go back again and again at Karpov and never be able to knock him off the mountain. Karpov lost his title to Kasparov, and then as he tried to come back after, the guy never got to knock him off the mountain. So it will be a tall order for Fabi, though he will have Smyslov as a model. Yes, you can tie a guy in a match and prove, yeah, next time I'm going to get you. He's got a long 2-year march. The other thing that we should note is the rating difference is still only 3 points. It will be small consolation, but a little bit of a consolation. If he goes to London and wins the very first game, he's the #1 ranked player, classical player in the world.
Love that point, Maurice.
So that's something he can look forward to if he wins convincingly there, shows his stuff. If he can get his strength back after this disappointment, then he could actually put a little space between him and Magnus as Magnus takes a little bit of a rest. So he'll say, well, you know, he got me in Rapid and Blitz. He obviously is the best in the world at that. But now the march starts again, going towards this desire to become the classical world champion, or the world champion, because I think you want to be the best at all disciplines. I'll also point out, I have to say, you know, a little bit of nudge to the folks who say, don't go to the tie break. We don't like seeing tie breaks. We don't like seeing rapid. You might decide it by Armageddon and Blitz and all that. You don't want to see that happen. If Magnus had simply tied this match and retained the title, there would have been a lot of howls.
Right.
Is Magnus really the best? You know, that's how he backed into the title. But by doing it like this, nobody's asking any questions. The champion earned his stripes. He said, I'm the champ. I earn it. Not that the challenger has to take my title, and so if I tie, I can be happy. No, I don't want to tie. This is how I feel good about myself. I dominated. Now you haters, you want to talk, don't say anything, because I earned my way to this title. And kudos to him for doing that, because he has his advantages in certain areas.
That's right. He had a lot of high-profile haters, including, I think, most of the elite grandmasters in the world were like, why'd you take a draw there? MVL, Gary Kasparov,
Guilty.
Anish Giri, Judith Polgar.
We're
So
all guilty.
if you were in that club, yeah, don't feel too bad about it.
No, it's a pretty good club. Seriously, and I really mean to say this in the spirit of genuine fondness. It's been an amazing 2 weeks. Jennifer, Maurice, it's terrific. I really, really enjoy working with you guys so much. You make it so much fun.
But
and the whole production team here is just so fantastic. Jennifer.
Spectrum Studios, Silverback, it's been phenomenal working with you guys as usual. But I do have a really exciting announcement.
Please.
I've been really excited about this. It's been in the works for a little while. We have a women's version of the Singfield Cup coming up in February.
Ooh.
It's going to feature 10 of the top female players in the world, a 10-player round robin, $150,000 prize fund plus. There's going to be more info at uschesschamps.com. I don't think we have an invitation list yet because we were waiting until the end of the Women's World Championships to find out.
Sure.
And a lot of people were busy at that time. But one
Clear.
reason why I'm so excited about making this announcement right now, Yaz, is because the World Championship and the Women's World Championship unfortunately kind of coincided, which made it hard for a lot of the top journalists in the world to see the women. And that this is very meaningful to me that the ladies are going to get their stage here in St. Louis.
Fantastic.
And the Cairns Cup, by the way, the reason it's called the Cairns Cup is that is Dr. Jeannie Singfield's maiden name. So shout out to Jeannie, who is a co-founder of the St. Louis Chess Club.
Amazing. Love it. Looking forward to it.
Nice.
That's just great stuff to watch the women who fight to the bitter end. We know we're going to see some fighting chess out of some of the big stars in world chess. And those women, by the way, another shout out to Ju Win-jun for her world championship title. So the reigning champs, it's hard to knock them off the mountain as Ju Win-jun maintain her title as well. And that's why we have so few title holders in history, because once a title holder gets there, they like to stay around. I'm the top dog until otherwise stated, and they stay for a while. So kudos to both magnificent champions for keeping their title.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I mean, pretty incredible. Ju Wen-Jun and Magnus Carlsen. That's a big parlay.
Now
Because in the Women's World Championship.
Now get back to Spectrum Studios.
Spectrum Studios.
Team.
Our team is really incredible as always. We've got Jen, who's always making us look good. We've got Marcus over in London, along with Eric, who provided some of the photography. We got Eric Mosel over here,
with the graphics,
including the famous Yaz turkey.
Oh yeah, that was pretty brutal. Okay, I liked it.
But yeah, seriously, we always have a great team here, and we're going to be back for the Grand Chess Tour London.
The final stage and Grand Chess Tour, and 300,000 in prizes in that event.
And then we'll have a lot more info in the Cairns Cup by that point as well.
Excellent.
We'll probably have an invite list for everyone so you can continue to get excited about that.
Brilliant. And Maurice, before you go over to London, you got some final words? Yeah, let's roll back the tears. Yeah, I know.
Well, tears for Fabi that he didn't pull it off for U.S. chess, as it would have really caused some kind of explosion here in the U.S. Still, kudos to him for such a terrific fight. His preparation was wonderful. He gave it his all. Just the first stage, even tying Magnus, was what a lot of people didn't expect. So he showed himself to be Magnus's equal in classical chess, at least for now. But definitely congratulations to Magnus yet again. You can't say enough when a champion delivers the goods. And I'm going to miss you guys. I'm going to be over in London. You guys are going to have a holiday here. Happy holidays to all of you, indeed. And I'll see you in February, though, so that's something to look forward to. Normally, I don't see you for months and months until April, but now more chess on the circuit. Looking forward to seeing you guys in February. And, yes, also happy to be with this team. What a professional squad. Makes our life so much easier, and always on the cutting edge of trying to present chess in a professional way. Broadcasting in a way that we can be proud of. So thank you guys very much.
That's right. I mean, John, Brian, Kite, Tammy, and today we had Alejandro helping us, along with Dennis Boros,
a big shout
Jonathan.
out to those gentlemen for getting up so early and joining us on set.
And of course, at the St. Louis Chess Club, we have Rebecca helping us with the events, Joy Bray, the general manager, and Tony Rich, who's actually in London as well, representing us. And shout out to the Sinkfields for the Sinkfield effect, which really, gave Fabiano this incredible opportunity, the desire to move back to the United States and represent the U.S. Chess Federation, knowing that chess is booming in America. And I think that boom is just going to continue.
Let's hope so. I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, for me, I thought that it was absolutely incredible that fabulous Fabiano qualified, first of all, from Berlin and made it to the challenger stage. He beat the odds, and there was some serious odds stacked against him. Now he's going to have to climb that very, very same mountain. He's going to face those same difficult odds. He will be an underdog, no question about it, to get back to this World Championship match stage. So we wish him much, much success.
And there's plenty of other American players who are out to get him. But
yeah, that's the other problem. They really are. Yeah.
We could talk about all the exciting things going on in chess for the rest of the week, guys, but I know it's been really intense. And to all the Team Fabi fans out there, I'm sending you guys a big hug. Still much love for Fabiano Caruana, the first American challenger for the undisputed title since Bobby Fischer. But we got to give the shout out to the king, Magnus Carlsen, because the king stays the king in the World Championship this year, and the queen stays the queen.
Yes, she does.
Well, I'm signing off for everyone at Spectrum Studios. Randy Sinkfield owns that company, and then also Silverback Productions. You guys, it's been great to work with you. Happy holidays, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Kind regards from the St. Louis Chess Club and St. Louis Chess Club staff. It was great. Thank you for sharing your time with us, and we hope that you'll join us for the final London Chess Classic. Have a good day.